it's tempting. It's to sit back at the moment, is it not, and just let it happen. Just let things be. Try not to become emotionally involved as much as one can.
Yeah, it's almost a survival mechanism at this point, I would suggest. I mean, it's quite it's been interesting. I've been enjoying, I enjoy my Twitter feed because I follow a lot of very bright, interesting and exciting people, but there's just been a few things that floated past my radar in the last couple of weeks that I really enjoyed. One of them was someone saying it's cool how it's the second week of January and we're already all burnt out,
Yeah,
It's like,
I mean, given what happened in the US last year, it's not so bad.
That's true.
I suppose.
That's
in
true.
Comparison.
Yeah, the armed fascists didn't actually try and take over the capital this January.
Not yet. Anyway.
No. On the other hand, the Democrats have got less than 11 months to pass voting reform. The two swing votes in the Senate are saying they're not going to abandon the filibuster, which means that 22 will be the last election in America that you could even call free and fair with an asterisk next to it. So I wouldn't say they're out of the woods just yet.
No, they definitely aren't. I mean, it's tiring, isn't it? The whole situation is just very, very tiring, I find, at the moment, to be perfectly honest.
I just don't understand how they don't understand the urgency. I mean, it's interesting. We'll get to it because this links directly into what we're going to talk about.
It actually does. I mean, bizarrely quickly and with rightness for us, but yes, it does.
Well, turn it over a new leaf. There you go. New year, ruthlessly on topic. But
oh, that's dull.
It won't last though, so don't worry.
It won't last. That's so.
I was just thinking about how, like, so we're here to talk about Don't Look Up, and so the moment I've been reminded of forcibly over the last the last 18, what was it, year, I guess, 13 months of the Biden administration. So there's a moment in Don't Look Up where they go to the president. They're like, a comet's, a meteor, giant meteor is going to hit the planet. It's a planet killer. It's going to kill everyone.
It is an extinction level event, and an extinction level event that shames the dinosaurs. This is going to. This is the big one. This is the one where history of life on Earth is over.
Yeah, and the president's basically like, we're going to ask the experts. We're not really sure about this. And reading between the lines, what it really is like, this is just too difficult. I'm too unpopular right now. And then they come back about a month later and are like, they realise, having done the polling, that actually if they pull this off, they'll win the midterms. So suddenly they're really interested in doing something about it, right? And it's about political expedience and it's about calculation. And like, the thing is, you can watch. I think one of the kind of sort of bits of cognitive dissonance that people are struggling from when they watch this film is it is a satire, right? It is a comedy.
Isn't it just?
Oh, formally it's a comedy, and I'll come back to that, because I think one of the things that people are mistaking is that because something's labelled a comedy, it has to be funny, and I think that's a mistake that's being made. But I also think that what that can confuse you with, or what that can sort of, the reason that can baffle some people is that you might look, it would be reasonable to look at that scene and think, oh yeah, but that's a bit exaggerated, isn't it? That's not really how that kind of thing works. But then we have a situation in the US where a year ago, almost to the day, a bunch of armed insurrectionists attempted to overthrow the changing of the president, the election of the new president, and the bit of that history that gets erased is at the same time that happened, well over 100 Republican representatives in the House to set aside the election result because of entirely baseless, entirely false concerns around voting fraud, which were based on no evidence, and each and every single one of which of those claims have turned out to be categorically false, completely untrue.
Which, of course, they knew. I mean,
they knew that at the time. Sure, absolutely. But there was no election fraud, and so it's not just that there was. I mean, we focus on the armed insurrection portion of it because it was, it made good TV. But what we forget about is the enemy inside. Absolutely. We forget about the vast bulk of Republican senators and congresspeople who were prepared to overthrow the will of the people in their positions of authority and power. And most of those people still have their seats, they're still in power, and they still are holding and espousing the views that they held and espoused on that day. So that's what Biden inherits, right? Biden comes into office knowing that's the backdrop. So he has two things he decides he wants to get done before the midterm elections, which is historically the moment when you lose control of what you can do anyway, because historically in the midterms it swings against the party in power, which at the moment is the Democrats. Right. So this is their window of opportunity these 2 years. So the two bills in front of him, the two big ones, are voting reform that basically rolls back some of the worst excesses of the Republican gerrymandering and also some of their grotesquely exclusionary voting tactics. Maybe even builds a little bit into the system to make it easier for people to vote rather than harder, and make it easier for them to register to vote, and create, and this is, by the way, this is small d democracy. All this is about is ensuring that people have access to the franchise. This is not.
This is the baseline of any kind of voter-based democracy, isn't it? It's baseline.
Yeah. Without this, you don't actually have a democracy, right? So he's got that, and he's got an infrastructure bill that's really a spending bill. So which one gets the priority given that backdrop? Of course, it's the spending bill.
Of course, it's the spending bill.
Spends his entire first year arguing about this bloody spending bill, and when it comes out, all the galaxy brain liberals are like, "Well, this should win things back for the Democrats in the midterms." It's like, well, no, two things. One, they're not going to be able to vote unless you fix the voting thing, so it's not going to help at all the constituency. And two, oh, by the way, there's still a pandemic going on. They're still dying in their droves. You ran on, we're going to fix the pandemic, and now you're standing there saying, "Oh, there's no federal solution to the vaccine." Well, what do you think's going to happen, dude?
Yeah.
In November, what do you think is going to happen to you?
Of course, and he's such a non-entity as well. Just on a purely cultural level, he's a complete non-entity, isn't he? There is, Trump played this incredibly, in his own peculiar way, phenomenally clever game, whereby he ensured, if you looked at your Twitter feed, if you looked at Facebook, if you looked at YouTube, if you looked at any kind of news feed, he would be there. He would be there somehow, present, and it doesn't matter what it was for. He was there in the public consciousness, right? And often that's what matters. That's what works. I mean, it's brilliantly parodied, obviously, in this film with Meryl Streep's president, who is exactly that, right?
Yeah. But I guess the thing I'm saying though is that it's one of those things where in the movie, even I watching the movie had to check my own initial reaction, which was like, oh come on, that's a bit much. And then just think about the actual current history, the current situation, the current historical moment in the US, to be like, no, this is spot on.
This is what got me about the film, and I do think this is part of what people are actually reacting to. It's that whole thing of people reacting emotionally, maybe, and not understanding what that emotion is or what's arousing it, and expressing it in an incorrect way, which is as criticism or as a reaction against the film. It's so molecularly close to expressing the ideological truth in which we operate. It's barely a metaphor. It's barely a parody, and that's what makes it so powerful. I think it's why it's polarizing everyone who watches it.
It's really interesting. I mean, funnily enough, I'm reminded of when Get Out was released. And one of the things that happened with Get Out was there was one, I can't remember the award, but there was a film award it was up for, and it was placed in the category of Best Comedy.
Yeah. And
there was a lot of anger, I think, understandably, from the film community about that, because it's Get Out isn't a comedy; it's a horror movie, or it's just a movie. But my favourite from a commentator was Paula Ashe, actually, the author and academic who I'm friends with on Facebook, and she said it's a category error, all right. Get Out isn't a comedy; it's a documentary,
right?
And it's like, and I feel like that's kind of the Don't Look Up thing for me. It's like,
likewise,
and I understand, like I said, it's called a comedy, it's labeled a comedy because formally, in form, it is a comedy, obviously. Like it's structured as a comedy, but it is a documentary. It's
absolutely,
it's a wafer thin mint away from being like, this is the state of the world.
it's an angry film. I mean, wow, is this an angry film? That's what I got from it. It makes you crawl. For me, when I was watching it for the first time, it made me crawl in my seat because it was so angry. It felt like being yelled at, and that's, for me, that's not a bad thing. I think, as is expressed in the film itself, sometimes a primal scream is the only sane response to our circumstances, and that's kind of what this film is saying. Our ideological circumstances, the situation in which we find ourselves at the opening of 2022, is worthy of being screamed for and at.
I agree with all of that, but to build on it, I think also at the core of the film, and I know for a fact this is where at least one of the strains of criticism has come from. It's also about powerlessness.
Yeah.
So in addition to the crawling horror of the current moment, a horror that we're all either living with or learning to ignore or whatever, but that is a presence in everyone's life. Having spent most of our prehistory firmly in nature's gun sights, incredibly vulnerable to environment, to disease, to our own teeth,
right.
Having evolved to a point where we've accidentally developed these two large brains that have enabled us to imagine and use imagination to craft tools, to come up with ideas, structures, language. We're now at a point where a particular system of government and commerce and interaction is leading us to extinction.
Yeah.
And as things stand, as of today, as of the 14th of January 2022, we are not taking any of the steps we need to take to even really slow that disaster from happening, let alone reverse it.
And even when we proclaim we are, it's largely pretense, isn't it, for political purposes? It's posturing rather than any kind of real action.
No, absolutely, that's the point, because we're still in a situation, and this is from an article that's 4 or 5 years old, but I believe the figure's still broadly accurate, which is that 75% of carbon emissions on this planet are coming from 100 companies.
Right.
So the thing about that is the issue that highlights is that we're so indoctrinated into the notion of personal responsibility and personal control. It's such a keystone matter of faith of our society that we rugged individualists, but somehow weirdly also acting in concert, but we're not a community. But we are responsible for the world we come up, and we talk about it like that. I think even I talk about it like that. A lot of people who talk about the environment say we're all responsible for this. We've all created this mess. We're all, we all have to take action to deal with it. And the problem is,
the reality, the brute, stark reality is browbeating normal people into, I don't know, using paper straws or something, or putting the right bit of rubbish in the recycling bin. It's not even a drop in the ocean. It's like monomolecular, right? It makes the brute fact is it makes no difference, and it will make no difference until those 100 companies are brought to task.
That's exactly right. Yeah, until they're brought to task or torn down or reappropriated, whatever the fuck it takes.
Yeah,
but that's exactly it. And we've been sold this myth of personal responsibility, this lie that we're all individually responsible for.
Right.
And that guilt is part of the churn. And by the way, that guilt's part of the movie, and that's something I want to get into.
That's isn't it just?
I think an underlooked component of the film that's actually incredibly powerful. But the thing is that the indoctrination that we suffer, and I'm sorry, but that is an indoctrination that serves the interests of capitalism and capital very well. That's why we have it. It's propaganda designed to create individuals who will behave in the particularly sociopathic way that requires that capitalism requires us to act in order to perpetuate itself.
And it also creates opportunity as well, doesn't it? It actually allows political movements and government and industries to weaponize environmentalism, to make it a profit spinning matter
Oh, they'll care about green issues as soon as they can use it as a political cudgel to beat their opponent with in any way.
I think one of the starkest examples of everything you're talking about there is, of course, when we were children, we had cartoons and entire franchises that were aimed at us that were all about this. I mean, Captain Planet was the obvious one. Look at what was the tagline of Captain Planet? The tagline of Captain Planet was "The power is yours." It was telling every child of our generation. When it says the power, what it actually means is the responsibility. It's essentially saying, this is your problem. You have to do something about this because we can't be asked. We've actually, and it's Ted Turner who created Captain Planet. We've actually spent billions. All of these celebrities and whatnot who got involved in the Captain Planet franchise. We're all worth probably up to $1 billion, if not more, together, right? And we've spent it rather than doing something real. We've spent it on creating this cartoon, this franchise that not only tells you this lie, perpetuates this lie, and enforces this on children, but also creates enormous amounts of waste in terms of the production of the cartoon itself, the video games that are on like floppy disks and whatnot, which are now in landfills, the plastic toys in their plastic packages, etc. It's not enough to keep the mind alive, is it?
No, and I think as well that the education it's more of a mantra of liberalism and the left to a degree, that the education's the silver bullet, and it's a sentence I've kind of unthinkingly repeated in the past. And I want to preface what I'm about to say by saying I'm not saying I don't believe in the power of education. I absolutely do, for personal enrichment, for personal betterment, and absolutely for societal good as well. I think sometimes it's given a bum rap because people misunderstand. Like, education is just, for me anyway, it's a mechanism whereby our shared knowledge as a species can increase, and that can only be. I can only believe that is a good thing on aggregate. So it's not that I'm not in favour of education, but the problem is that it's not enough to just give people the information that these carbon emissions are causing. And I understand the logic. The logic was, when we were kids, well, if we tell the kids this in school, when they grow up to be adults and they become politicians and they join political parties and they attain power and influence, they will take this knowledge with them and they will use it to ensure that things are better. And that the thing is, in the kind of platonic ideal of a society, of a democratic society, that would work. Guess what? We don't live. Well, no. We don't live in that society. Our rulers do not come from those schools.
Nope.
They never have. They never will.
Nope.
Our rulers are part of a part of an elite formed by wealth that have their own language, their own skill set, their own measures of success and failure, their own world, their own microclimate. And we have nothing to do with that. We never penetrate that.
No comprehension of it, no way to access it. We see are the horrors it perpetuates. That's
exactly. Because we're trapped in that machinery. And to go back to the conversation we were having about democracy, I realise, very belatedly, it's a weird thing. As a teenager, I was kind of obsessed with proportional representation and with the when I remember the shock I felt when I first really understood how the first past the post system worked and how profoundly anti-democratic it was.
When people realise what that actually means for the first time, the first past the post, I think it comes as a real shock to most people. They think that's archaic, that's absurd. How can that be real?
I tell you the clever thing about first past the post, and I think this applies to a lot of the better kind of small c conservative ideas. It looks fair on the surface. It feels plausible on the surface. The person with the most votes win. What could be fairer than that, right? Like, okay, that's democracy. That's how it's supposed to work. It's only when you realise how it works on constituency level, and you understand how population distribution works, and you understand how votes stack up in different parts of the country, and where it's like, if you win that constituency by 1 vote or by 1 million votes, you have exactly the same level of power. and the person who came in second has exactly the same level of power, i.e. 0, whether they lost by 1 vote or lost by a million. Right. And the way that and then you start to look and you think, oh, hang on a minute, no, this is actually
bullshit,
completely broken. What this means is that 70% of the population in the country that has a chance to vote is effectively disenfranchised.
It's disenfranchised, vote is meaningless. Right? It's absolutely bloody meaningless. Yeah.
And this is where we are. Like we've been that powerless my whole life, and it's the kind of film that makes you reflect, or it did to me anyway. It made me reflect again on it. It's interesting how
coming in what it was. Did you have any idea of what this film actually was?
I did. I did. Yeah, because I'd skim read a piece in the Guardian about it. But it was mainly talking, and it was so absurd. I mean, this is talk about the coverage. It was about what I remember the article being about, and it may have been about other things, but what I remember the article being about was about concerns when it was being made that the stars would look too grungy, that these super Hollywood mega beautiful people were not looking pretty enough in this film.
That's the kind of concern that this film absolutely demonstrates as being so picayune, and that's amazing, isn't it? That's almost like
wild, isn't that wild?
That is wild. That's art, like reality imitating art, imitating reality, right?
Really disturbing stuff. And in the fucking Guardian, God help us. I can't imagine what the Telegraph's got to say.
I didn't. I'd only vaguely, I don't know why it had, I'd heard people talking about it, but only vaguely. I hadn't really gone into much research about it. And I watched it on New Year's Eve this last year. I volunteered to be at work on New Year's Eve, but there was nobody there. There was only like one person, and he went to bed, right? Okay. So I was like, on the overnight up on my own, and there was nothing to do, so I watched Don't Look Up, and it's very, very, very rare these days, and at all, to be honest, that a piece of work affects me so much that I want to turn it off. There were parts of this where I almost had to stop.
Can I just ask? I mean, given that, what made you pick it? If you genuinely have no,
I think. Do you know what it might have been? And this is really venal, and it may have just been because I like the cast.
Okay, yeah. Sure. I mean, it's a hell of a cast. I mean, holy shit.
And they are great. I mean, the cast is just on a purely technical level. I think the cast are amazing. I think DiCaprio.
I think it's the best thing he's ever.
Leo is like, he gives this molecular performance here where so much is said with looks and close-ups of his face where he's not saying anything, he's just reacting to the circumstances and the situation. And I think he's amazing in it. I think he is absolutely incredible in this film.
Yeah, I mean, I've never actually been a Leo fan, and I'm still not. But wow, I think this is, as I say, I mean, I think this is his best performance, and by some margin. I think this is quite exceptional. I mean, I like some of the people he's worked with in the past, and I mean, The Departed's a good film, he's good in it. But I always felt The Revenant was like, winning an Oscar for Shivering. I'm sorry, but I just and The Wolf of Wall Street felt very in his comfort zone. Again, not a bad film, but felt very in his comfort zone. It didn't, and I don't know. Sometimes I find him, to be honest, a bit unconvincing. But this one, I think, I was sort of touched on it earlier, but I think for me, I know that the actor, I know that he is an environmental campaigner. I know that's one of the issues that he cares about, and I think for me, it was two things in performance. One was what we talked about earlier, that sense of guilt. The carbon footprint of Hollywood is considerable, right? The entertainment industry as a whole has a big old carbon footprint. And this it's a difficult thing. I mean, we're both writers. which makes us artists of a kind, and we believe, I think, in the not just the power of art, but the necessity of it, right?
Oh yeah, it's one of the few things that's totally unambiguous. It's not even an article of faith. It is just absolute. It's in the same way that I believe that beauty is its own argument, or that pleasure is its own argument.
But I'd argue that art is a utility. I mean, I'd argue that it's you need a roof over your head, you need clothes on your back, and you need stories, you need music, you need or you need whatever it is that speaks to you. You might not need all of them, but there's something, you have some need in you for that nourishment, and that's what it is for me. But having said that, cinema is a fantastically wasteful industry, and one that has, as I said, a carbon footprint that is significant. And most of the actors involved in that film will be millionaires. And that level of wealth has its own kind of, and certainly Leo will be a multimillionaire. Kate Blanchett will be a multimillionaire. When you think about the work they've done and in the franchises they've been involved in, and they must know that each of them as individuals carry a carbon footprint in excess of most people. Right. And yet they care about this issue. And yet they want to make films. And I think Leo's guilt, I think that was in his performance.
He's tapping into that. There is something very sincere, I think, going on with Leo. Some of the points where he's on screen are actually really uncomfortable, I found. Because it looks like he is actually in distress. It looks like he's like really in distress. It doesn't look like actually distress. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because that's the second part about his performance that I wanted to hit on, because you're absolutely right. And it was predictable from the first scene, but it didn't make it any less powerful when it came. It was the meltdown in the studio when he realizes that the Elon Musk character or whatever he's going to be, Elon Musk crossed with Zuckerberg.
He was superb, wasn't he?
Fantastic. Holy shit.
He may actually be my favorite element of the film. The various horrors of our discourses and the systems that we've sold ourselves to that he represents, I just fantastically encapsulated. The arrogance, the ignorance, everything is there.
But also just enough of the brilliance. I mean, I think
enough, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me, he was Elon Musk was the person he most reminded me of, because there's that. I mean, there's an Emperor's New Clothes quality about him, right? About both of them, actually. I think about Musk in real life and about this character as well. There is definitely a component of people think he's a genius because he's a billionaire, as though they're the same thing, right? But at the same time, there's just enough of, I don't know what you want to call it, native intelligence, or they're not stupid men. I don't think Elon Musk is a stupid man. I think he does very, very stupid things, and I think he's a classic example of someone who's bright at one thing and thinks that makes them bright at everything. And I think he's one of the best worked examples of that you're ever likely to see. But I mean, IQ is a vexed subject, and I don't think it measures as much as people pretend it does, but I do think it measures something, and whatever that something is, I think Elon Musk has it, right? So he's not, there's something going on there, but at the same time, there's this thing of why do we not just laugh our asses off when this man says he's going to Mars? Why do we not just laugh when he says he's going to solve Flint, Michigan's water problem? Why don't we just, why do we take him seriously? And the naked truth is we take him seriously because he's a billionaire.
Because he's a billionaire, not because he has any particular expertise in any of these areas. We have been so conditioned in our cultures to equate money and influence with worth. With human worth and capacity, and that is the real disease, isn't it? That, and in this situation, in this film, of course, it takes it to the logical extreme, which is, of course, that we sell ourselves, we sell everything to one of these people, we sacrifice everything on the altar of their arrogance.
I think the other interesting thing about that, though, is because of that particular element to him, although, as I say, in his performance, he's very much reminds me of a kind of a hybrid between Musk and Zuckerberg. He's also Trumpian. Because that was Trump's central appeal, was he was a, on paper, millionaire. I mean, actually, probably not, right? As we know, and that's one of the few kind of strands I'm holding on to at the moment desperately, is the fact that you know, the district attorneys in New York are still issuing subpoenas, they're still issuing warrants. You know, he could yet go down. I mean, you know, they got Al Capone for income tax evasion. It
has happened. I mean, give me Capone over Trump any day.
Well, yeah, true. But also, I think as well. I mean, not to get miserabilist all over again, but of course that does highlight rather for me the point that, you know, Trump's a symptom. Yeah. Trump ain't the disease. The disease is the Republican Party. The disease is the rabid form of late stage capitalism that they represent, and that left unchecked will lead to fascism. Will lead to you know, because it does, because that's kind of what capitalism does.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? Ultimately, as well. I mean, for the Trump movement, that's the point, right? Yeah. It's exactly what we were talking about earlier, where you have these Republican candidates who were trying every dirty trick to not only hold on to power, but ensure that they gain more power. It doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. It's dominion. And that's always been the end game.
Yeah, and frankly, the reason quite a lot of them didn't like Trump and don't like Trump is because he was just a bit clumsy about it for their
That's right. I mean, the saving grace of Trump is exactly the saving grace of Johnson. You know, it's the fact that they are so venal and so arrogant and at the same time so incompetent and ignorant. It reins in some of the more vile fascist elements of their particular movements that they've allied themselves to.
I mean, I wonder about that, actually. It's an interesting... I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I certainly agree with the thrust of your argument, but I wonder about... One of the interesting things about studying European history is that when you look at... Oh, fuck it, let's just invoke Godwin now. When you look at him, you look at his speeches, right? There was... I mean, you were probably taught this as well. Like when you get to like GCSE level history or just before it, they sort of, one of the things they talk about a lot is how mesmeric he was as a speaker, how charismatic he was as a speaker, how kind of, you know, how incredible. And it was, you know, he had all this, almost this hypnotic power over the German people. And it's like, I'm increasingly kind of like
skeptical of that.
Yeah, I'm increasingly like, you know what? I think that's probably not true. I think he probably looked as nuts as he looks to us.
Well, that tallies with the actual history. I mean, if you actually look back at what like the sort of upper middle bourgeois magazines of Germany were printing the day before the Nazis took any kind of real power, they were calling them clown shoes. They were calling them imbeciles. They thought they were a joke, right?
Yeah. And I think, you know, I think Johnson. I mean, you know, Johnson's buffoonery, Johnson's lack of seriousness, lack of weight, intellectual, moral, has been apparent since the 90s. That's not an exaggeration. This man should never have been mayor of London. He should never have been mayor of London twice. He should never have become MP again after leaving the House of Commons to become the mayor of London.
What his gradual ascension demonstrates is, once again, that these people are not the problems in and of themselves. They're the symptoms. They're the symptom of the sickness. And the sickness lies with A, the systems, and B, with what the systems have produced, which is us. You know, there's something very rotten at the heart of Britishness and Englishness at the moment, which means that we are generally, not universally, but generally, we're cowed by certain performances. So the buffoonery, the apparent buffoonery of Boris Johnson has actually helped him a great deal. It's helped him to mask the malevolence and cruelty and just the pure venal wickedness of the man.
Yeah, behind this kind of gosh blimey.
Oh, gosh blimey.
Well, and the kind of, you know, the kind of sub Morecambe and Wise posing as well. I mean, all of that, right? And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I saw there was a wonderful Twitter thread that someone shared a couple of days ago about the notion of the very British notion of the legend. The guy who's the legend, and every friend group's got one, and this is the guy it's just someone for whom normal rules just don't apply. You know, they're old-fish and they're always drunk and they fuck about and they always seem to get away with it, and they always seem to like...
What they don't seem to understand are these are the people who are beating up their girlfriends. You know, these are the rapists, these are the child abusers, these are the ones you want to watch out for, right?
Yeah, well, and also like the other thing that the thread pointed out was like they come off as off your class and on your level, but actually when you dig into it, they've either got inherited wealth or they're landlords or they're fucking, you know what I mean? And they own a 500k business or some shit. Like they're not actually, you know, they act like they're on your level, but they fucking ain't, you know. And that immediately triggered that remembering that press conference from that guy lasted 2 weeks as Trump's press secretary, the Mooch. I can't remember his real name now. I just know him as the Mooch. But he was interviewed by Newsnight, one of the few interviews he did, and I remember the person on Newsnight saying, but and he was saying, like, because the thing about Trump is he's an ordinary American, so they understand him because he appeals to ordinary Americans. And she was like, no, but he's a member of the elite.
He was.
He's a millionaire. And she said no, but here's the interesting thing. He said yes, he is an elite, but he's also an ordinary American. She was like, how can that possibly be?
How do you square that?
Yeah, and you know what he said? He eats pizza.
Yeah, this is the kind of bullshit that you get from every factor of the right. This is the kind of games that they play. It is exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting for those of us who take them to task to pare through the bullshit, because that's all they've got. That's all they are, right? It's all you ever get from them. It is like what we were talking about with the interview with Lorraine Kelly with what's her face, the turf woman who was basically. She claimed that she'd been deplatformed. She was on an international broadcast, morning television show, claiming that she'd been decancelled.
Having been in 3 other national newspapers and 2 other national radio stations.
Right. It's saying in front of the cameras, live on television, I've been deplatformed.
Yeah.
It is the emperor's new clothes. It is basically, if they had their way, they would have you believing up is down. They would have you believing that good is evil, and so on and so forth. They would.
But you're absolutely right. It's Johnson's inherent laddishness that creates this sense of appeal about him, regardless of how dangerously incompetent he actually is. And that's why none of it sticks to him. He's just and that's where you get that phrase. You get people honestly saying out loud with no sense of irony, he's doing his best.
He's doing his best. What planet do you... I mean, I don't trust them when they say that. I'll be honest. I think they're lying to themselves when they say that. And they're lying to me, and I will tell them that they're lying to their faces these days.
Here's where I get to with that one, though. I have a horrible feeling they might actually be right.
In that instance,
actually be doing his best. Because he's so fucking useless.
He might be.
When did we accept that?
Yeah.
As being like a bar, you know what I mean? When we look at public office and say, well, as long as they're doing their best, I don't care how many hundreds of thousands of my fellow countrymen die of a preventable disease, right? Because he's doing his best.
We are now at a point, as evil and venal as they all were, previous Tory prime ministers would be and are, obviously. I mean, we've actually seen previous Tory prime ministers.
As just reactionary as they are.
As reactionary as they are. And of course, they've got nothing to say because their actions have resulted directly in this situation. Right. In terms of continuity, they're as much to blame as anyone else. But the fact that even they are aghast at the excesses that are happening now.
I mean, there is a bit of humbug there as well, I've got to be honest, because there is something that frustrates me. I mean, it's just something that particularly bothers me about Theresa May when she comes up, because she has been critical of Boris a couple of times, and there's always, when she does, there's always this wave of like, oh my God, former Prime Minister, Theresa May is, a point of principle, and then there's this whitewashing of her legacy. Like,
I was going to say, like, Windrush never happened, right?
Exactly, that's exactly it, because whenever I hear all that, all I can think of is like, in any sane society, Windrush would have been the end of not just that government, that party.
That would be the end of the party. In any sane political situation, that would have been the end of that party.
Right there, done. Yeah.
I mean, and once again, this is all incorporated in this film. It is all there. On some level, there is commentary on I haven't come across a piece of media that so concisely and elegantly expresses almost all the minutiae of our current circumstances down to like the finest detail, and does it so quickly and elegantly, often within the frame of a single joke or scene.
Yeah.
Right? I found it very, very affecting. And I also find that as a result of that, I think the reactions, the antipodean reactions that it has drawn are actually quite deliberate. It is putting up on screen our ideological situation without ornament, really. And it's no surprise, therefore, that those people, it is saying, you are going to be responsible for the extinction of humanity. You lot are. It doesn't surprise me that people who are part of those power structures or part of those movements are reacting badly to it. I do find, I mean, don't get me wrong, if you didn't like it, you didn't like it, and that's fine. It's a film, everybody's going to react differently to it, but having read some of the reactions to it, I think I've read as many bad takes on this film as we did about the Joker.
Okay, I think
for similar reasons.
We almost made it to the hour marker before we brought up Joker.
Before we brought up the Joker.
No, but I knew it was coming up because we had to talk about it, because you were absolutely right. And again, bafflingly to me, I expect that reaction from the right. I've been disappointed and surprised by some of the reaction I've seen on the left. And look, again, let's be clear, as you said, I don't want to, co-sign what you said in full. Taste is taste, opinion is opinion. If you didn't like it, you didn't like it. I'm not saying you should like it. I want to be clear about this. I think this is a fantastic movie. I think it's a phenomenal movie. I didn't enjoy it.
Me too. I think
me pleasure, right?
Yeah.
Fucking hurt. Okay, that's.
Oh, I won't watch this again. Like ever. Yeah. Like probably not ever. I probably won't watch this again. It was too much.
Probably only when I want a good ugly cry. I mean,
right. I was twisted up.
Yeah.
I literally physically twisted up, and when I was finished, the tension hurt. Yeah. My whole body hurt when I'd finished this film, and that is not hyperbole.
Didn't you actually? You paused it before it ended, right? And you gave a bit of a walk around, and you were like, "Do I even want to see this through?"
Yeah, I had to stop. I had to stop it. I can't remember what point it was, but it was near the end, and I was like, "This is." Yeah, I'm not sure I want to finish this. And that is, the kind of horror that I like and the kind of material I go for.
Yeah.
A comedy, a comedy of all things, is the one that does for me.
But I think there's something I don't know. I mean, I haven't thought this through at all. So this may go nowhere. I may shoot myself in the foot at some point rhetorically. Yeah. But I wonder if there isn't. I do feel on some level like, and this is interesting because obviously it's been a consistent line of criticism that this isn't. It was labelled as a comedy and it's not funny and therefore it's bad. But I do feel like a lot of those same people would be the ones who say, "Oh, but comedy's so great because it lets you address the uncomfortable truths, right?
Yeah.
It lets you get under the hood of the blah 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 blah. A lot of well, let's just go for it and just label them as Ricky Gervais apologists. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Bang on about, two things, freedom of speech, but also like, but no, it's meant to make you feel uncomfortable. That's the point. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. So it's like, and then this fucking thing lands. Well, that's just not, that's just not funny. Like,
this is too close. That's why this is not towing the line. That's the problem. Yeah. This is not orthodox. It's not towing the orthodoxy, which is, of course, in comedy, you kick down, right?
Right. Yeah. Implicitly, and I think as well. Like, look, I agree with that. There was something else I want to pick up on what you had to say there. It was like, I'll be amazed if any major news organization gives this film a positive review, because they almost can't, because it absolutely points the finger at them.
Well, it's excoriating them, isn't it? It's basically saying to almost every system that's complicit in our current power structures, you are responsible for this. Okay.
Social media as well, right. And that's really key, because one of the things I keep thinking about, I can't get it out of my head since it happened, and my mind returns to it with regularity, and I'm struck by the wonder and horror of it all over again. The anniversary of the attempted insurrection, right? It's just literally just passed. But do we not recall that the moment when social media collectively, Facebook and Twitter, suddenly decided Donald Trump was a threat,
right,
and then started labeling his tweets as containing inaccuracies and lies, and his Facebook posts as containing inaccuracies, and then eventually disabled his account. Right. So we all remember that did actually happen. I didn't imagine that was a real thing. Right? And I remember at the time, I absolutely remember the sense of relief that gave me. But I also remember the feeling of rage that came not long afterwards, and that has stuck with me ever since, because they could have fucking done that any fucking time they wanted. They have always had that power. Yep. And he has always been completely full of shit. And he has always been dangerous.
Yeah.
He has always been spreading malicious lies. He has always been racist. He has always been inflammatory from the start of his campaign. From before that,
yep,
he has been a fucking cancerous cell in the body politic from for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And they could have stopped him any fucking time.
It took him inciting an insurrection, for them to label him as dangerous.
Yeah, and fucking Stable Doors. The horse is,
mm-hmm.
in the next fucking county. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, the horse is on fire at this point.
Exactly, the horse is on fire. It's running around. It's catching all the other horses on fire. Yeah. They've caught the livestock on fire. The town's fucking gone. It's just like, what the fuck is wrong? And the thing is, as well, they did that to Trump, but they're not doing it to fucking anybody else.
No.
The power structures that created that situation. It's like the same thing in this country with the fucking BBC, who 3 years ago or 4 years ago, the BBC finally turned around and said, you know what? When it comes to the climate, we probably shouldn't put climate denialist up against someone who believes in climate change for balance anymore. We should probably stop this now.
But they still do it on other things, don't they? The BBC's notion of what is balance.
Oh, they'll go one better. They'll go one better on trans issues.
Oh yeah. It's
two cis people arguing about whether or not trans people are real.
Oh, let's not be, let's not sugarcoat this at all. They will get an actual rapist, a rapist of women.
Yeah, absolutely.
They will get a rapist of women.
Trans women make them feel.
Talk about how dangerous trans women in women's bathrooms are.
And when called out about it, they'll correct the article, but not in any way that makes it clear the mistake they made in the first place.
Oh, God, no. And also, I mean, have you seen this? The article is still up in its full form in Brazil.
I didn't know that. But...
Yeah, in Brazil, where the rate of anti-trans violent crime is next to genocidal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, Bolsonaro and, sure. I mean, the atmosphere over there is...
Mm-hmm.
Lily
Cade is still in that article.
Jesus fucking Christ! Right,
which basically demonstrates to me that the anti-trans movement that is in the BBC is murderous. I mean, it's basically murderous.
At what point, as a news organization, at what point when a murderous far right near-fascist regime is using your article as propaganda, do you not stop and fucking think about what you are doing?
Right.
I mean, like,
what did it take with Lily Cade to actually get her input out of the article? It took normal people on Twitter. Someone on Twitter actually put this. They were like, if normal people are the ones who have to do this, then what point the journalist? Why you do even exist?
This is the thing about the information age now. This is the one silver lining in the kind of, because there are, social media has been a fucking catastrophe. I mean, it's very clear to me now. That's the other thing about the Trump thing. That's very. This is an anecdote, and I had I'll anonymize it. I had an elderly relative I met with over the Christmas break. Lovely person, good natured, politics very much in line with my own. And they happened to share with me something that they'd seen on Facebook, and it was it really doesn't matter what it was, but it was just some kind of aphorism that was, and it was attributed to Morgan Freeman, right? And then they sat there and said, "Oh, I do like that Morgan Freeman." And it was that thing where I just sat there and thought, there's almost no chance Morgan Freeman actually said that.
Yeah.
It's just an aphorism that someone's got and stuck his name on and made it into a Facebook meme.
Yes.
Now, in that particular instance, in that particular case, obviously, that's harmless, right? It doesn't matter that Morgan Freeman didn't say it. It doesn't matter that this person thinks Morgan Freeman did, right? It doesn't matter. But it doesn't. You don't have to look at that for very long to realise how that could matter, right?
There are some very dark implications, aren't there?
If you just take a different quote and you put a different name underneath and you attribute it to someone else, like a negative quote, and you attribute it to Obama or, I mean, you can see, right?
Yeah,
it takes almost, and it's like, that's, again, it's the fucking boomers, but that's the generation that social media has done a number on.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're used to a media environment where there is a certain amount of fact checking that has to go before news makes it to the headlines. And as both know, not enough, and there are still issues of bias. But there were certain standards in place. Certainly, when they were young in the 60s and 70s, there were certain standards in place. But they're in a situation now where they've got this fire hose of shit coming at them. Yeah, and they have no idea how much of it is just raw sewage.
Yes, they haven't. Ironically, in a similar way that they often, not universally, but often haven't the technical expertise to deal with the actual hardware. Yeah. There is also that lack of the cultural tools that are required to navigate this morass, this boiling maelstrom.
I also think it's just muscle memory. I think it's because when I actually said to that person, there's a good chance Morgan Freeman didn't say that. That person turned around and said, "Oh yes, no, of course, yeah." There's no real way. Like when they had a chance to think about it and they engaged with it, but that instinct wasn't there to start with.
Right.
When they shared it first, it was, "This is Morgan Freeman said this," and it's like, fuck. Because that's the bit that gets you. It's the bit you don't even think about.
Yeah.
That's what gets you every goddamn time, no matter what it is. It's the untested assumption that kills you. And this is not a stupid person. As I say, but the thing is, for you and I, it's instinct. If we see a quote with a name after it and it's just a random Facebook meme, we do not actually assume that quote was said by that person. We just don't, right? In fact, we probably assume it wasn't.
Yeah, we go looking a lot of the time. We're sort of like, hang on.
Well, I assume it's bullshit unless I care enough, and then I'll look it up, right? But that's kind of where we're at, right? And I'm not saying there will have been a point in my life where I would have shared something on Facebook or retweeted something that wasn't true. Get out.
Who hasn't? It's like it is actually an impossibility not to have done that at some point, right?
Not into this. And what I'm grateful for is I've got friends who I trust who, when I have done something like that, they've picked up on it and they've actually let me know, and I've taken it down and I've apologised.
Likewise.
And it's been a lesson, learn, pay more attention. And that's all fine. But it's that systemic thing. It's that systemic thing of not having that layer of that instinct to critical thought when you engage with the information. And I'm afraid that is for a large percentage of that generation. That's where they're at. And for them, Facebook is fucking poison. It is poison. Because whether they're in the US or the UK, it is pouring far right shit directly into their brains.
And it's worse when it's not just an inert quote, when it's not just an ambient quote or something to that effect, when it's something that buys into or reinforces a sense of identity, something that feels good, right?
The object lesson we had from a few years ago in the UK on Facebook was Britain First, right? Who ran a really successful Facebook campaign for months. And I saw people who really should have known better, who were not just liking but sharing Britain First material. The reason they did it was because they'd start with, "We think animal cruelty is wrong. Share if you agree that people who mistreat dogs should be put in prison," with some appalling footage of some abused dog or whatever. And it's like, well, yeah, I agree with that. I'll share that.
Of course.
And then the next one is like, illegal asylum seekers get paid 15 grand a month from the government while our pensioners live on 30p a week. Share if you think that's disgusting, right?
Right.
And it's the same person who told you about the dogs, so you think, oh well, they must be right. And that is disgusting. Pensioners should be paid more than that, and that's not right. And and it's like,
it's that gradual erosion, isn't it? It's such a deliberate game as well.
Absolutely. But the thing is, like, in the specific instance of Britain First, they outed themselves eventually as far right, and then Facebook went in and shut down. So, but it's, but the Republican Party is doing this.
Yeah.
And there are operatives who work for the British Conservative Party in this country that are doing this. I guarantee you. I remember the Facebook ads I got in 2019. I'd never seen anything like it before. And I started getting Facebook ads from all these groups. None of them were labelled conservative, by the way, but all these groups that claim to be pressure groups from out of nowhere, and they always name something innocuous like Parents for Real Education or what the fuck ever, and they all just spouting complete demonstrable bullshit about either Labour's education policy position or the Tories. And it was just, the hell is going on? And it was exactly the same thing. And I don't know. I mean, it's a failure of the algorithm that they ended up in my feed, because it was never gonna stick with me for a minute. I guess just like politics posts. Maybe that's
it's the same reason why I keep getting bombarded with Jordan Peterson videos whenever I go on YouTube, right?
yeah, it is, because what you're looking for is Jordan Peterson is a complete tool, but once you
exactly
this, you end up getting the
actual lectures, which I've heard, by the way. I mean, Jordan Peterson has got like a grand total of 3 stock lectures that he gives wherever he goes, and I've heard them all. I get the postmodern neo-Marxist blah 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 blah. I get it, all right.
I mean, yeah.
But I mean, like, it is, once again, it is something that this film highlights so beautifully. This notion that we live in this strange, almost like Baudrillardian hyper-reality, where we exist in information, we exist in abstracts, to the point whereby the imminence of our own extinction doesn't really matter that much until it is. There's nothing we can do about it, right? And even then, it's something that we use to our benefit. It's something that certain parties or certain movements use to their ideological benefit, rather than see as the catastrophe that it is.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, and the role that capitalism plays in enforcing all of that. I think for me, genuinely one of the most brilliant and chilling and viscerally upsetting moments in the film, and this is a film not short on such moments, by the way.
It's definitely not. It's
the moment when I can't remember the name of the character or the actress, but it's when Jennifer Lawrence character Kate goes home to her parents, having been through this, trying to get this publicity campaign up and running to say, hey, by the way, there's a meteor and it's going to hit the planet, we're all going to die, let's do something. And it's the moment when her parents said, the first line is something like, we don't want this kind of controversy in our house.
No politics is what they say.
God. But then one of the follow-up line is, we believe in the jobs that the meteor will bring.
Yeah.
And I was just like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah,
there it is. Like, it just hurt. You know, it just really, really hurt.
Yeah, it's something. I mean, again, I think part of the reason, beyond all of the really big implications of what this film is getting at, which is, ultimately the imminent extinction of our species. Yep. One of the things that made it hurt so much on a personal level, it's one of the first films I've ever seen that so absolutely and consummately expresses that sense of being an alien in the 21st century, being an alien on safari, watching humanity around you engaging in these foibles and this suicidal banality, just feeling like you're shrieking into the void. And that is something I think is very particular for our generation. I think it's very particular for our generation.
I mean, ours and the one below us, I would say, in fairness. I mean, I've got my stepkids are both in their early 20s, very late teens, and they're just, I mean, they have a level of gallows humor about it that I don't, which is interesting, but they're just as incredulous.
Yeah, of course.
About the whole thing. They're just looking at it like, well, what is this craziness? What is this?
I mean, they would have been born into the absolute escalation of it as well, Yeah. We were kind of almost there at the beginning.
I mean, I think it was, I think so. I mean, I think it was sort of, people who know more about it than me will correct. I mean, my kind of pop history memory of it is it's like sort of mid-60s environmental concerns really start to come to the fore, and it's maybe sort of early to mid-70s that the science really starts to kick in and like, no, we do have a problem here, and the problem is greenhouse gases. The problem
and then in the 80s it becomes pervasive. Bizarrely, it becomes pervasive in all media, but it's promoted in entirely the wrong way.
Well, it's not. You see, I don't think it is. I think it's not about the issue is not with how it's promoted. The issue is we have a power structure in this country and in the US and a global power structure described as capitalism that is completely fucking impervious to our will. as people. And I think that's what we've got to get our heads around. That's what the movie does so well. That's part of why I feel so passionate about this film and why it hurt as much as it did.
I think it's also why, a lot of the people who are angry about it or who proclaim to not like it are also so passionate about, Well,
the review I saw in The Independent that made me want to throw something against the wall was like, you can't make a movie like this and call it a comedy and then not offer any hope. And I was just like,
what the fuck are you talking about? That's the point.
That's the point. Twat. Yeah, like there is no fucking hope in the situation we're in right now. I mean, for me, it was like, I mean, I've riffed on this one before. Funny enough, when we were talking about Midnight Mass, but it's the Easy Rider ending all over again. I mean, for me, the whole point of Don't Look Up is you should come out of it feeling like you've been punched in the gut.
Yeah, that was the point, surely.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, I know, funnily enough, I've spoken about this with Jack a couple of times in some of our podcasts, but another part of the problem is the way media generally tends to occur these days, and the appetites that have been cultivated, which is people want comfort. They want the same thing over and over again, or they want something that's going to console them or reinforce their sense of what is correct or that the world is right or whatever. And this doesn't. This really, really doesn't. It, in fact, goes in the opposite direction. It is actively aggressive to its audience.
And that's an excellent point. And I think that's something that I remember when the pandemic kicked off. I remember chairing. So it was. I think it was Chimera in 2019. I think, which was going to be a face-to-face, and then it moved to online. And I chaired one of the panels, and I was a guest on one of the others, but. As you will imagine, given that was the first summer of the pandemic and we were all working from home, we were all adjusting to doing online, online everything really.
Of course.
But, in this context, kind of like online festivals and conferences and stuff like that. There was a whole thing there was this thread that ran through a lot of the genre conversations and especially the horror conversations about like how do you feel about being a horror writer in the middle of a pandemic? Does it? What impact does it have on you? And there were a lot of people who were saying, actually, I don't really feel like writing horror. I feel like I want to write escapist stuff because I feel like that's what other people want. It's certainly what I want. Yeah. And and I think that's, as an artist and as an audience of art, I think that's an entirely valid response to have right now. Like I get that. And I was talking, it's funny enough, I was talking with my kid about this the other day, but I've got there's this kind of movement within sort of SJW circles and within left circles more generally about saying it's really, really, really important to read outside of your comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
And specifically, often what those voices are talking about are reading voices other than white men and white men that you know well. And I want to be completely clear. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think it's vital. I think it's not just important. I think it's vital to your kind of artistic health and mental health and well-being and growth as a human being. Absolutely expose yourself to voices that are aggressively not your own and aggressively outside your comfort zone. Really, really important. I think there is also value in returning to your comfort zone from time to time as well. I actually think both matter. I think both are necessary, actually. Yeah. And what I've found is when I do when I go out and I read stuff I haven't read before, I read, books written by people who have been historically underrepresented and all that, and I get a lot out of it. But what's great is when I also, as the work has merit on its own and it makes me think in new ways. Then when I return to my beloved comfort zone classics, I see them through fresh eyes.
Of course, they change because you've changed, right?
Right. So they are enriched as well. So it's a win-win all round.
We had that experience with The Shining, of course.
Very much so, and I'm having it all over again with the Magica, which you and I will get back to, hopefully before the month is out, but certainly fairly soon.
As an aside, I'm so glad Jack is enjoying. I knew he would.
Yeah, no, that's a delight.
I knew he would. Seeing people come to this for the first time is just gleeful. It's just gleeful. I mean, when he said recently that it's about revolution.
Is this about revolution? Yes.
In
Jack.
Ways that you can't even. I mean, it's only 20% of the way through. So in ways that when he realizes how right he is, like how right he actually is, I think he's going to be like effervescent.
Yeah. It's great stuff. But I feel it's interesting. I love the book at least as much as I did when I first read it. And it was my favorite Barker, and therefore one of my favorites ever when I read it as a teenager. It was, because I did the books, the doorstop Barkers, I think back to back. I did Week Well, Great and Show, and then I closed it out with Imagica. And Imagica was my favorite, and I for years I thought it might have just been my favorite because it was the last one. But coming back to it, no, because I think it's the scale.
Reading it as a writer.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
I was awed by it as a reader. I was awed by it as a reader because of the way it made me feel and the way it made me think. As a writer, I can't believe it exists. I actually find it hard to process that it exists. It's like some literary miracle. It's like it should not happen, right? It's inspirational as well, though. From anyway, look, let's not do the Imagica podcast. Right, yeah. No, let's say.
My point in bringing it up was that's absolutely. That's comfort zone art for me. Yeah. King is comfort zone art for me, and that doesn't mean and that's again what's nice about that is when I say it's comforting, it doesn't mean it doesn't challenge me. It does, but it's a comfortable kind of challenge. It's
because it's yours, isn't it? It's something that it's familiar territory at least. Even when it's bringing up very dark and difficult subjects, which these writers do. They're horror writers.
Absolutely. But so for me, when people were saying, because I got asked that question in one of the panels I did, and it was me, and it was, I can't remember who else was on there, Tim Levin and a couple of other people, and that's really embarrassing that I can't remember because they were both really awesome people, but I'm terrible with names. But anyway, but I remember saying that for me, like I'd heard that response and I completely respected it, but I also said, like, actually for me, I feel like it's more important than ever that I write about horror.
Yeah,
because I think some of us need to see our current time reflected back to us.
Yeah,
if only for the comfort of knowing we're not alone.
Yeah,
and I like that revelation was. I mean, that was one of those things that I discovered as I was saying it,
as it was coming. Yeah, it was unconscious. It was just something you felt. Yeah.
And the power of that has become more and more and more clear to me over the last 18 months as that pandemic has dragged and as the political situation has evolved and developed. I have, and I've been on a bit of an interesting. I was talking about it before. I've got back into the music of Eminem recently, which is an artist I listened to as a teenager and a young man. Basically forgot about. Completely abandoned, came back to after a long hiatus and have gotten to absorb 15 years worth of art in about 2 months, which is always amazing. So there's a lot there and a lot of journey. But what I realized was, and it's just, by the way, I don't mean this as anyway as an apologia. If you don't like Eminem for any reason, there are many valid reasons not to like him, and I'm not trying to sell him or anything. I'm just talking about my personal experience with this particular artist, and insert your own favorite artist here. But for me, there was something about I realized one of the core components of why it spoke to me so much now, and why I found it so powerful, was it listening to that guy just express his anger and his fear and his frustration and his mental illness.
Yeah, right.
And his struggles with his what he'd been through in his life and where he was. It did me more good than any "It's okay to not be okay" poster in the world could ever do. Because
it's cathartic, isn't it? He's expressing something sincere. He puts, certainly in his early work, he puts anger and hurt and pain and the tensions between him and his mother.
Yeah, the stuff with it, right? And the thing is, like, this is, look, and again, I'm not. If you don't like Eminem, I understand, and there are valid reasons not to like this guy, but like. This is a man who, as a child, was absolutely abused by his primary caregiver for his entire childhood. And part of that abuse was he was, inappropriately medicated for a lot of it. Like, that is an incredibly fucked up thing to inflict on a kid. He also had, incredibly strong undiagnosed ADHD, right? and a combination of those factors, plus growing up in poverty, plus growing up in Detroit, plus growing up with the kind of music that he happened to latch onto and get into, you know, all of that is you know, you can't take away any one of those one elements and have the same person, right?
Right.
That's all fuel for how he became who he was, who he is. But none of it's good or okay. It's really, really fucked up.
It's really dark. I mean, you can feel it. I mean, whenever you listen, especially to his earlier stuff, where he is just expressing.
Yeah. Well,
it's wow.
It does. He circles back to it in his later stuff, and I mean, another thing I'd say that I'm finding inspirational is I think his late career stuff is better. I actually think he's one of those rare artists that is still improving. Yeah. Technically, he's unquestionably light years ahead of where he was. I mean, technically, in terms of rhyme scheme and in terms of breath control and in terms of technique, he's now, I would say, he is completely peerless in a way that he maybe wasn't when he started out. So I think on those, that's unarguable that he's a better artist in those, by those measurements. But also when he circles back to those subjects, now he has more perspective. Now he knows more.
Of course,
it's actually I think those, because he's still. I mean, he did an apology song to his mum about 15 years in. He finally got around to like, hey, where the fuck was Dad?
Yeah.
Never mind you. Yeah. Where the fuck was Dad this whole time? You know what I mean? Like, and I mean, that's the other nice thing when you see someone, you get 15 years worth of an artist, like, especially someone who's as autobiographical as this guy, you kind of get to catch up, you know?
Yeah.
How like you have it with Barker, I have it with King, where you feel, not that you know the man, that's an exaggeration, but you feel like you understand certain contours.
Yes, you understand something about the way their mind works, because that's what they express, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you see how they develop as well, and you see how, like, you know, you can see that with those, and I think for me it's the same thing with this guy's going back to that, but what I realized I was getting from it was the same thing I got from like that early connection I had with Guns N' Roses, another one of those bands, like, you know, I'm not going to defend on a moral basis at all, and I wouldn't, like, if you don't like him, I understand, there's no reason to except the fury that they were expressing spoke to me, and it spoke to me, and it made me kind of embarrassed that there wasn't any other art that was doing that, because it was giving voice to something that I felt in me, but I wasn't allowed to acknowledge. Yeah, because it was verboten, because it was taboo, because it was not what good kids do or feel. And I felt it anyway, and it gave me permission to feel it. It gave me permission to express it, and that's what I mean by "You Are Not Alone." And it's like, that's the thing that I get from, and that's what I get from. This is what I get from Eminem as he's trying to turn 50 and go like, "Can I even do this? Can I still be a hip? Like, what does it mean to be a hip hop artist at 50? For fuck's sake!" Like,
right? I mean, this is almost a new phenomenon.
It is, right? That you know, hip hop is now having to learn how to do this the way rock and roll had to learn how to do this. Like, it's a young man's game until it isn't, and you still want to do it. And what does that mean? So
you still have things to express, right?
Exactly. You got all that still going on. So that's, but for me, it's that connection to not feeling alone. And this fucking movie. Yeah. When Leo has his meltdown in the studio, because the thing for me, it is expressing something fundamental to the moment, isn't it? It's what so many of us are feeling. Where we just want to go out into the street and shriek, you know. I think it's more than that. I mean, yes, absolutely that. There's the catharsis of recognition, which is what I was talking about. But for me, even more, and this is what I had a meltdown about this like a week afterwards, because I kind of it was upsetting me, and I had a second kind of, I don't know what it was. I felt better afterwards. But like, it's not just that. It's that, but it's also when you look at Leo's reaction in that moment in that studio, as he's kind of like his own, because the thing is, like, it's important to remember in terms of the story of the film, this is the point where his character's psychological dam breaks, right? Because it's worth bearing in mind, his character's kind of bought into the bullshit, right? His character gets won over by this Elon Musk type character, and he starts believing, oh no, it's all going to be fine, it's all right. The meteor's going to get really, really close, and then they're going to send the drone ups, and they'll break it into pieces, and then when it lands, they'll be able to get all the gold and the minerals out of it, because it didn't all burn in the atmosphere, and then, you know, and it's going to be like, so, and he's selling that, right? He becomes the face of that.
you can almost see why. Like when the Elon Musk character is talking about it, it's a beautiful vision, isn't it? This notion of like a new utopia where there is no poverty at all, where suddenly we're in a new beyond digital age because of the technology this could bring.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very
it's persuasive, isn't it? It's persuasive because it's something we want, right?
Oh, it's incredibly alluring. And you're right. It's a utopian, but there's a thing there actually I want to get to, which is like, of course, the reason his character doesn't talk about the risk associated with that,
right?
And the reason his character doesn't talk about the risk associated with that is because for him there is no risk.
There is no risk.
The people selling you this, there is no risk, because the people at the very, 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 very top, they've got their fucking bunkers, man.
Yeah. Or in this instance, their spaceship.
Their spaceships, right? Which is, I mean, funny enough, I think Ben Elton did a novel in the late 80s, early 90s about ecological collapse called Stark, and that was the plot of the novel where they built a space station for the uber rich.
It reminds me very much of the series Altered Carbon, which is on Netflix at the moment, a cyberpunk series. There is a line in that always sticks with me. It's essentially about a cyberpunk dystopian situation where basically the richest of humanity have basically created a societal situation where they are effectively immortal. They can shift from body to body. They can cultivate genetically their own perfect forms, and the rich have lived for generations of lesser humanity. And there's a line in it which is, "We have allowed the richest amongst us, the worst of us, to become gods."
Yeah, and I mean, for the record, I think that is also propaganda, albeit propaganda that they themselves believe. Because I think the other thing I will say about Don't Look Up is that the post-credits end sequence is perfect.
Yeah.
Because that is actually how it will end. Because this is the thing about the bunker. The bunker ain't going to help you, man, if the fucking bees are gone. If the bees are gone, it's fucked. And the other thing about the bunker that none of them have figured out a solution for, and I know they haven't, because there was something a few years ago, I remember reading a news story about this, where they were having a conference to try and work this out. When everything else has collapsed and you're there in your bunker, what is to stop the private security firm that you hired to man your walls just shooting you and taking all your stuff?
Exactly right.
And the answer is absolutely nothing, because you don't know how to drive a gun and they do. So they're fucked either way, actually. They are as
and also,
fucked
I mean, these kinds of people, the kinds of people that they are fucked themselves, ultimately.
Oh, that too. But like, don't you think that's interesting? It's like, that's where it's like, we've talked about this as a comedy. Of course, the reality we're living through is a tragedy, amongst other things. I mean, it's also, it's also an apocalypse, but it is a tragedy. And the tragedy, I think, for me, the tragedy of capitalism is that even most of the people at the very, 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 very top actually sincerely believe in this absolute bullshit that they've created. And of course, I mean, they're incentivized to say they believe it because it's working for them, but I think they are true believers. And that's kind of terrifying, really.
I think it's actually, for many of them, it's actually impossible not to believe. It is the notion of there being anything outside of that is like saying outside of the universe, right? It's anathema. It's meaningless.
Well, I think, I sometimes think about like, I sometimes think about how it seems to me that you have and I may be wrong about this, but it seems to me like there's a disproportionate number of incredibly successful celebrities tend to be religious. And I often think about, like, if you are one of those people who has come from poverty or relative poverty and you've ended up as a millionaire, actually by whatever means, but especially if you've done it through the arts, because then you've kind of, I always think of that as a kind of like trying to do it with one hand tied behind your back, you know what I mean? Like, that's really, really tough. I can imagine it would be kind of hard not to believe in God at that point, because you're like, well, look at my life, look at how ridiculously lucky I've been.
Or something like a personification of luck.
Or fate, absolutely right. And that's but often that, I mean, not to denigrate anyone's faith, but I think often that often is it, isn't it? God, I'm sorry.
No, it's true. It's absolutely
not in all cases and not for all people, but it does happen, I think. And I kind of get that, right? And but I think like I think for me it's a similar mechanism to capitalism. I think, like, of course, if you're at the top of the tree and you're looking at the system, you think, well, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be.
Right.
And you even start telling yourself stuff like it's not just how it's supposed to be, but it's like a natural state, which is the same as saying it's divinely ordained, right?
Right. I mean, this is
those terms are interchangeable because
it's no different from the divine right of kings or something to that effect.
Absolutely.
Is it really?
Absolutely.
We're supposed to be here. This is the natural order of things, right?
Yeah. And I think the film does a good job with that. But I also think that the moment that Leo freaks, and has that meltdown, it was a moment of profound catharsis for me in the moment, because it was like, at last I was seeing someone on a screen expressing what I was feeling about this situation. But the other thing that hit me later that makes it even more powerful is, not only did I have that moment of resonance, but for me, seeing Leo respond that way, that is the sane response to the situation that we're living in and living through. That, staring red in the face, spit screaming terror and fury is an absolutely 100% sane, rational reaction to our current situation.
It's something that I used to struggle with when I was a younger man, this notion that you feel like the only sane person in the room, or I used to think, well, maybe that is more indicative of something wrong in me.
Yeah. Of course you do. Of course you internalize that shit. How can you not? How can anyone not?
It's become increasingly apparent that no.
But here's the thing. That's the sane, rational response. And you look like a fucking lunatic.
You look like a lunatic, right? Because every system around you frames you as a lunatic, and
that's the genius of the Cate Blanchett thing. That's the genius of that character, that news program, and that whole setup, and the whole interaction of her character with Leo's, because that's what that's about. That's how the structure manufactures consent. That's how it closes off debate. That's how it channels what is acceptable discourse until it's so fucking narrow you can't get a grain of truth through it anymore.
It's
can't even get a grain through it anymore.
Right, the notion of truth just breaks down. Right.
It's all feels and good times and
balance, quote unquote,
and balance and banter, right? That doesn't fucking go anywhere and doesn't mean anything. That's just point A, point B, and it's all valid and we're all lovely, and
we're here to console, right?
We're
here to we are the new opiate of the masses, right?
And that's the fucking news. But of course what they really are is serving as a propaganda arm for a machine that's going to destroy us. I mean, it's a man, like I say, this film is not going to get well reviewed by any fucking major newspaper, major TV or outlet. It's not.
It's not. No, it's absolutely true.
It implicates the media far too strongly, and social media as well. It implements.
I think it's the same thing that happened to Fight Club. Fight Club was I mean, it was excoriated when that first hit cinemas. It was absolutely excoriated. I'm hoping it has the same trajectory as Fight Club.
I hope so too. I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting. I have seen a few prominent ecological campaigners who have said similar things to this that we're saying, who have said, like, thank you for finally putting something on the screen that made me feel like I wasn't going insane and that I wasn't the only one, so I think it is going to form a point of resonance for a lot of people. Well, it has. I mean, it clearly has, but I've got to be honest, I'm more interested in where it's caused dissonance for people on the left and people who do understand the situation. And I wonder, I mean, it'll be different reactions for different people. I wonder how much of that will be. As I say, I think I understand the category error problem. If you sat down thinking this is going to be really funny.
Yes, it might have blindsided you quite profoundly, actually.
And I think you made a point earlier that I think is really valid, which is just like, I think this film doesn't make you feel good. I think it makes you feel.
No, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. It's not designed to. It's not designed to make you feel good. But that's the point, isn't it? I mean, that's exactly what Leo says, of course, when he stands up. He says not everything has to be nice or comfortable or clever. sometimes you've just got to say, what the fuck is going on? That is the truth of it. That is the absolute truth of it, as things spiral more and more out of control, and as the systems that exist corrode more and more and more. Yeah, it's a valid response.
It is, but
it's the most valid response.
And but I also think that if you sat down expecting a comedy that, even if you knew what it was about, if you were expecting a comedy that was somehow going to lampoon the current situation and maybe give you a bit of lift, then you're going to come out of that feeling awful, and you might be angry at the film about that. And I guess I understand that. I would hope that under those circumstances, one would be intellectually honest enough to own what was going on with the response. But
I wonder.
The film made you feel bad and you didn't like that. Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always.
There's a wider point to be discussed here, of course, which is, of course, why should it make you feel good? Is that the whole purpose of art? Is the purpose of cinema and art just to make you feel reinforced and positive? If it makes you feel anything, then surely that's a good thing. If it intends to make you feel something, to arouse a particular response, and it arouses it, then it's succeeded, hasn't it?
I agree. I think, as I say, I think the problem is definitional. I think when you use the category of comedy, which is an accurate label to describe this film in terms of structure, but people go into a comedy expecting to laugh, and this film doesn't really make you laugh very much. I
suppose so, but
I think, that's a very basic level, but I still think I'm sure that's at least part of what went on for some people.
Yeah,
right?
I've no doubt. But even given that, comedy that has a long history of facing very dark and deviant subjects in a very profound way. It's often been compared, for example, to Dr. Strangelove.
Well, that was the comparison that I thought of, and the reason I find that a pretty good comparison is I think Dr. Strangelove is a fantastic movie. I actually don't think it's very funny.
No,
I don't get a lot of belly laughs out of Dr. Strangelove, and I never have.
Nope.
And that doesn't mean I don't think it's not a brilliant piece of cinema, and indeed a brilliant piece of comedic cinema. It is. As I say, formally it's comedy, but to me it was never that funny. And that's probably just because I was really, really, even as a child, I was very much plugged. We've discussed this on various podcasts past, haven't we, about the nuclear Armageddon, which was such a prominent part, certainly in my childhood.
Yeah.
The feeling of inevitability that the world was going to end,
imminently.
Yeah. And at half an hour's notice, we likely the first thing we know about it would be the flash on the horizon, that's a thing, right?
I find it amazing. I was so impressed to find a film that expresses all of this in this manner. The bravery of it. I have no doubt that most people involved knew or anticipated the backlash, because this kind of work is always going to get backlash, and there's going to be entire vast mechanisms and systems in society that will be against it.
And it's
exception.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The smarter ideologues on the right will have realised how potentially dangerous this is, and will absolutely have been all hands to the pumps to discredit and disparage it at every opportunity. I think for me as well, that one of the things I found breathtaking was and again, this is not an opinion that everybody shares by any means. I was impressed by how self-aware it was. We've talked about the media, and we've talked about the actors and the Hollywood thing and the guilt they feel, but we haven't mentioned yet Ariana Grande.
Oh yeah,
who is absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal in this movie. I had no idea.
Yeah,
and it's so intelligent what happens with her character and the way it's, and obviously that would have been in the writing, but she clearly understood it.
Yeah,
because her performance is flawless.
Yeah,
absolutely flawless.
And despite the fact that she is in a bizarre way skewering her own image, what she is in the popular consciousness, it's very there is a kind of bravery to it.
It's really weird to be talking about a film with Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence and Kate Blanchett and Meryl Streep,
right?
Jonah Hill and Ron Perlman and Ariana Grande.
Subversive.
But that concert that they have at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't the most blatant send up of Live Aid.
Yeah, right.
You know, and the thing is, like, how on the nose is that in terms of the criticism of Live Aid? Like, yeah, great, have a big fucking concert and make yourselves feel better. What difference are you actually making? Fuck all.
How often do you see popular media and popular comedy that's willing to go after those sacred cows, right?
I mean, Live Aid, never, no one can touch it because it's Bob Geldof.
Oh, yeah. And how can you possibly criticize them, right? They're trying to help starving children in Africa. How can you possibly criticize them? Yeah.
You know? And it is merciless.
Yeah.
Absolutely merciless in how
it's absolutely. It really puts on screen how absurd it is as a response to tragedy, to cataclysm. Oh, we're going to have a fucking concert?
But think beyond that, what's that really saying? It's talking about the futility of art in the face of Armageddon.
Right.
Ouch! Like, that fucking hurts, right? Yeah. That really, like, I'm not surprised that artists don't like this fucking movie, to be honest.
Yeah, well,
it's a bit like, fuck you too, what have you done, you know?
Exactly. It does say, like, you know, it's not going to mean very much if, like, everything is obliterated, is it, really?
Exactly.
Perpetuity doesn't mean anything if there's no eyes to see, you know.
The name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look upon my works, you mighty. I mean, yeah. Once the desert's claimed you, you're claimed. You're gone.
Yeah, right. You are done.
And you know, the tragedy of this one, there's no one even left to fucking read it. So you really are gone.
It's like, it's the absurdity of the circumstance as well. This is the most ridiculous apocalypse.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that is, again, it's incredibly powerful. And again, I think that's probably part of what upset people, because it's nothing more infuriating than realizing that not only is the climate change apocalypse that you're facing real, not only is it apparently unavoidable, not only are we still foot down on the gas, accelerating towards it instead of doing things to mitigate it. It's fucking stupid.
It's stupid, right? It's like, you know, we've been sold this notion of dystopia and apocalypse through fiction, that it's somehow going to be epic, it's somehow going to be grand, it's going to be the war to end all wars, it's going to be something amazing and epic, and even in a strange way, you know, in some fiction, in a weird way, edifying on a human level, right? It's going to bring out the noble savage of us. No, it's just stupid and banal and petty and pathetic, and, you know... Yeah, it's the absurdity of it.
I'll tell you something, I was promised a lot more fucking Mohawks.
Yeah.
You say that right now about the end of the world, a lot more Mohawks. No, it's you know what? It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing. Yeah, it is. It's an absolutely embarrassing excuse for an apocalypse. We may as well, you know, it's basically saying, you know what, at least we may as well take control. Let's just aim all the fucking nukes at one another. You know, let's just do that, because at least it means more and we have more control than this, you know.
Well, this is the thing, but actually, if you think about it, what those apocalypses have in common is that ultimately it is powerlessness.
Yeah.
Whether our end comes about through nuclear Armageddon or climate Armageddon, the fact remains it's an incredibly small number of people who are making the decisions for all of us.
It's mutually assured stupidity, isn't it? I mean,
we have. But we are powerless. I mean, that you know, again, I come back to that. That's one of the things. And again, the concert is sending that up. Like, what's the response of the news media? Well, it's to laugh at it, or to entertainment, or to find the positive, because you've got to find a. What's government's response to it? Well, ignore it until you realise you can make political capital out of it, and then do something, and then do something else when you realise, you know, do something more risky when you realise there's money to be made. Well, that's how we are.
It's so banal.
It is.
They're so banal.
But what's the response of art? Oh, let's do a concert. You know, what's the it's fucking horrendous, man. It's horrendous, and it really it hurts so much. And
I think you could very easily categorize this as a very subversive horror film.
It's 100% a horror movie. I mean, that's why, not to spoil it, because I've only written about sort of 3/4 of it, but I'm doing a review for Ginger Nuts, and my pitch to Jim is, I'm doing a review because this is a horror movie. It's
a horror movie, right?
No, it is a horror movie, 100%.
I totally agree. Yeah.
You know, and I think, and I just, I get goosebumps every time I think about that final meal. I just do.
Yeah.
Even the pathetic bouginess of it.
Yeah.
Fucking wine and the Trader Joe food and everything about it is just perfect.
Yeah.
Is that like, you know, when Leo says in the last line of the movie before the you know, the post-credit sequence, we really did nearly have it all.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? I mean, that's like the encapsulation of the entirely illusionary, but feel like it's going to last forever middle class comfort.
Yeah, right.
That many of us live in to some degree or another. Millions of us don't, but many of us do. And I think so much. I mean, this is something I've always thought about. It's something my fiction comes back to, and it's something my brain just won't let go. One of the things that, and I'm an amateur student of history at best. You know, I'm not. But one of the things that you learn when you spend any amount of time really looking at human history is the structures that we kid ourselves as being immutable, as being pillars of concrete, as being foundational, as being, you know, immutable laws, not just, but like laws of divinity, laws of nature, that we use to build our societal structures are so fragile.
Yeah.
So fragile. And it's, you know, it's a banality to say, you know, any society is only 3 missed meals away from a revolution, but it's not entirely untrue either.
No, it's not. And you're absolutely right. The film basically metaphorically and also quite literally blows apart that entire illusion and takes a degree of glee in doing it as well.
Yeah.
I think there is at the end, for all of its pathos, there's almost a sense of relief.
Yeah, well, I think that's, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think one of the threads that I see going around quite a lot at the moment is, and again, because of the people I follow on Twitter, I guess, like, what do you pop quiz, what do you do if you're a mental health professional and the reason that the people that you have referred to are depressed is because they have a realistic understanding of the state of the world?
Nothing. What can you do? You can't cure them. You can't help.
Exactly. What does treatment look like at that point?
Treatment looks like a revolution.
It's a serious fucking question. Like, it is, because these are not people, you know, I'm talking about people who got into mental health for the right reasons, right? These are people who legitimately want to help people improve their lives, make them less unpleasant, make, you know, help. And I'm not, you know, not in terms of that kind of blind capitalistic, you know, be happier so you are more productive, but just like so people can get through their fucking lives. This is why I mean, the people I follow, this is why they got into mental health in the first place, right? They just want to make people's lives less shitty. And now they've got this epidemic of people coming to them and saying, hi, yeah, I'm really worried because it looks like the world's going to end before my kid is going to make it to the age of 40.
Yeah, well, and the only response to that, of course, is, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And a shrug, because what exactly can you say if you're honest?
And I don't have any better answers than anybody else. I know my response is make art, because that's always my response. To strong emotion, right? Because that's just how I'm wired. So
yeah,
for me,
likewise,
make art or be miserable or be miserable.
Yeah.
But like, that's it. Like, but that's not a solution.
It's not a solution. No, that's an expression. That's all that is. That's an expression. But
it's better than nothing.
Solution? Well, there isn't one yet, is there? There's certainly not one that's apparent.
I mean, we either have the power or we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And at the moment, we don't. It's unambiguous. It's not open for debate. This is not. And yet, see, the tradition that we're not taught about, we're taught about individual responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
We're taught about that until we're blue in the fucking face. Everything's our fault. What we're never taught about, what we cannot under any circumstance be taught about, is the power of collective action.
Of course.
That way, like, because that's the mob, right?
Yeah.
Capital T, capital M, and they're just bad. Mobs are bad, right? Inherently, They're malicious, they're brutal, they're destructive, they're brainless, they're blah, 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 blah.
As all of our media insists, of course.
Indeed. And I don't find a lot of reasons to be optimistic. I don't see a lot of grounds for hope, I have to be honest. But the moments that I do see, the moments that do get me, I think about a couple of years ago, just before the pandemic. I think about Extinction Rebellion shutting down central London.
Right.
What, like a week?
I think about the Colston statue going into the river.
Yeah. And I think about the jury unanimously people who did it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That for me, that was one of the most. It was a spark of hope. I went that statue go into the river.
I went completely overboard on that one on social media, especially when the verdict came in, because the verdict was, I mean, as magnificent as the statue going in was on its own terms.
Yeah.
The verdict is actually really fucking important.
Yeah, of course it is.
Really, that's significant, because that goes beyond, because the statue going in the river would have been a good thing regardless, but they really could have gone to jail for it.
Oh, they could. They could,
and
but
some may next time too. Right? Let's be real about this. The next statue that goes, and it doesn't matter who it is of, the next statue that goes to the water, the way the laws are being changed with this lot running things.
It was hilarious, because I live in a town which venerates Sir Robert Peel, obviously, because he comes from here. Awful Tory land baron bastard, like all of them, creator of the police, hence Bobby's. There's a big statue of him in the middle of the town, and when that statue went into the river, oh my god, the defenses that went up and descended on that statue are unbelievable.
Yeah,
unbelievable. Could I also, just as an aside, because without a hint of irony, right? Because the town I come from is also famous for its pigs. The town itself has put a pig in a policeman's helmet in front of the statue.
That's quite funny.
That's not
I'll be honest,
the town. That's actually like an art installation.
That's really quite funny. Oh, someone surely must know what they've
along
done.
The way. Someone surely must.
Some absolute genius,
right?
Snuck that one under the radar.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow. Right.
But the thing I keep coming back to is, but then you have these people where you have, Greta Thunberg, she's out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She's telling it exactly like it is. And it's that thing, like, she's making it to the cover of Time and Newsweek, right? It's not like no one's listening, exactly.
Oh my God, no, and they hate her. But the establishment hate her guts,
But it's also kind of still not making any difference.
No.
And I just don't know. I just don't know what does change. Again, I think it was completely deliberate that the movie ended the way it did, including the postscript, by the way, which again I think is, as we both discussed, I think is accurate. I think that this the big lie that the super rich have told themselves is that they are immortal, that they will somehow find, and they fucking will not,
and that somehow they're the worthy ones. That's the thing, isn't it? It's that somehow they are the best of the best. They bought into this like Ayn Randian narrative that they are where they are because they deserve to be. Obviously, they deserve to be, right?
That's good old-fashioned fascism. Might makes right. That's the creed of the bully. That's what that is.
Absolutely.
Nothing more elevated. They'll dress it up in all kinds of highfalutin forms, but it's actually the basest possible.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely base. So that's what Ayn Rand is. It's misread Nietzsche. Nietzsche's got enormous fucking problems as a philosopher. But if you're going to read one of them, read Nietzsche, please. For God's sake. Ironically, for God's sake, which is Nietzsche discussed the death of God. But for God's sake, read Nietzsche. That's a great quote, actually. For God's sake, read Nietzsche. Jesus.
And for sake as well. Let's in the interest of balance, let's just say
Yeah.
No, but God Almighty, I don't know. I don't know where hope comes from, but I do know that for me, the decision to end the movie the way it did was entirely deliberate, because it was about throwing it. I think it was about throwing it back to the audience. I think that was an explicit decision on the part of the filmmakers to say, "Hey, you want a different ending?
Mm-hmm.
Fucking figure it out, guys.
Go do something about it, right?
I mean, look, there are criticisms to be made in the movie, and I think it's worth touching on.
Yeah, there are. I mean, I know one point that did not hit for me which I thought could have been done better, and it's the moment towards the end where you've got basically the Trumpian rally, and it's not being given by Meryl Streep. I don't think it's been given by her son.
Yeah.
And one of the mega hatted people looks up and sees the comet and sort of has this realization that it's actually there, that he actually looks up, and it spreads, like the realization spreads. I don't think that would have happened, and I think it would have actually been a bit more powerful if they would have kept their heads down smilingly up to the point of apocalypse, because that would have been truth. That would have been more accurate.
That's an interesting point, and I think that, I mean, one of the jokes I made on maybe a year or so ago now, I can't remember, but one of the things I remarked upon a little while back was to say, like, you'll know that we've reached a tipping point with the climate when the psychotic American evangelical movement moves from climate change isn't real to climate change is God's judgment.
Climate change is God's judgment, and is inevitable, and
you'll know at that point, you'll actually know that it's too late, because they won't pivot until they can't avoid it. But having said that, you may have the right of it, and they may actually stand there and literally, as the floodwaters rise, insist that it's not happening.
I think that's absolutely. I think we've seen that with COVID. That with COVID. And it's like
you may well have the right of it there. I may have been slightly too optimistic.
I think the reason, I mean, to be fair to the film, I think there is a reason why they didn't go that way. I think it would have just been too dark for the tone of the film. It needed. It is still ultimately a comedy, and it needs the punchlines, right?
Yeah, maybe, and I think if the film has slightly more faith in people than I do, then that's probably okay.
That's fine. Yeah, it is fine. I just found it not entirely as on the nose believable as a lot of the responses. I mean, that's the fun of the film for me. That is certainly where the emotional engagement lies, which is that some of the reactions are exaggerated, but not much. It's like it's an infinitesimal exaggeration. You could, I suppose, criticize the Trumpian president that Meryl Streep plays in the sense that she's far too cunning to be like a direct analog for Trump.
Well, but I don't think she was meant to be Trump, actually, and I think this is a really important point. I think that the interesting thing about Streep's character is that it was equally as likely she was a Democrat as a Republican.
Right, yes, that is absolutely true.
Her party is never actually revealed, and I actually think that she could have been what they call a moderate Democrat, or she could have been what they used to call, I mean, they don't really have moderate Republicans anymore, but she could have been one of those, actually.
Yeah.
She genuinely could. She fitted either, because what she really was a cipher for corporate power and interest.
For politics itself, ultimately,
And I'm afraid that in the US system, you have two political parties. You have the hyper-capitalist fascist one and the capitalist, slightly less but that's it. Those are your choices: hyper-capitalist, fascist, or just capitalist.
It's absolutely true. It. I mean, it's no exaggeration to say that the Biden government is to the right of our Tories on many issues, and like extremely to the right in many
on some issues. Absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. That's correct. That's just factually accurate. America hasn't had a meaningful left-wing political movement ever, really. I mean, there's been pockets of it regionally here and there, have occasionally gotten a toehold, various kind of crisis points in capitalism, but basically not. And I think I think that's really important to kind of bear in mind, that she could have been either. She could have been either political party, and actually it doesn't materially affect the story.
Because it's not really, I mean, although it is, it does contain a lot of imagery which is absolutely Trumpian. It's not necessarily attacking that exclusively. It's attacking the systems, isn't it?
But the thing is as well, as like, it's not Trumpian because it's like we think of it as Trumpian now because he's been such an egregious example of it, but actually I think I might have even put this in a review, is I think I said something like it only looks ridiculous if you're too young to have a memory of George W. Bush standing on the deck of an aircraft carrier with a mission accomplished banner behind him.
Right, yeah.
They've been doing this shit forever, man.
Yeah,
this is
true.
This is, and this is again with Trump. It's that thing of like there are ways in which Trump was an aberration, but it's a mistake to think of him as an aberration. He is absolutely a continuation of a strain of American political thought and power that goes back centuries. Goes back from the creation of the formation of the nation.
I think it's more accurate to regard him as an inevitable product of.
Yeah, I mean, when he was coming up and it looked like he, and everyone knew he wasn't going to win, I joked about him being like the kind of final form of the Southern strategy, because I always felt like they would American politics would hit a demographic tipping point where the Southern strategy would no longer be a viable means to democratic power. Like at a certain point, you couldn't win with the angry white vote anymore. You just couldn't,
right?
Because it become too small. I mean, it would shrink. That's what I mean by demographic. Like it would literally shrink too much. And of course, I'd completely reckoned without the Republicans' willingness to break any democratic norm.
Yeah, I don't think anybody entirely predicted that.
No,
the degree to which they were willing to go.
I feel angry with myself for not really, because this is I think the central failure of leftist thought. I'm not even going to say centrist thought, because the centrists don't fucking think. That's their problem. But
that's absolutely true.
It's just fucking banality and ahistorical kind of flim flam. But for the failure, I think, of leftist thought was to not realise that because of the model we had in the 30s, because we saw a worked example of fascism becoming government in the 30s, what we didn't realise, or what we failed to realise, I think, sufficiently quickly enough, was fascism doesn't actually require its own party and political movement to grow. It can grow within an existing political party. That's what's actually happened. It's happened in Brazil. It's happened in the US. It's happening in this country.
Yeah,
it's growing inside a pre-existing political party. It's the central failure of imagination of Stephen King when he wrote The Dead Zone. The Dead Zone is actually prophetic in many important ways. It's genuinely an act of prophecy. I don't mean intentionally. I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, you read The Dead Zone, cannot help but get chills reading that in 2022, because he did predict Trump. But the one failure in his prediction was to assume that the Republican Party had limits. That they had limits they wouldn't go to, and that in order for it to tip into fascism, you would need a third party. You would need someone who would break that mold. No, you don't. You did not. It will always grow. It will grow within. And we've got Boris. They've got Trump. And I use the present tense. They've got Trump because they do still have Trump at the moment. He's still the de facto leader of the Republican Party, and until he ends up in prison, that will remain the case. And he may still stay in that position even from jail. I mean, there's an amazing post from an anti-fascist campaigner who was obviously celebrating the fact that a bunch of Proud Boys have been sent to prison for a very long time for their role in January 6th, and they said, imagine the irony of being a Proud Boy and losing 20 years of your life to prison because you were trying to keep Trump in power, and all you had to do was wait until the midterms. Just let Biden go for 2 years.
Yeah, that's true.
Mind you, and then they went on to follow up tweet where they said, of course, really looking forward to Trump pardoning them in 2024, which, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's a despairing thing to say, but it's absolutely true.
I think this is the thing. I say it out loud, and I am aware that by saying it out loud, I sound like one of the tinfoil hat people.
But we've already gone that. The thing is, we've already gone further than that, haven't we? That's small potatoes compared to the insurrection last January, right? Surely.
Yeah, I mean, I think you cannot underestimate how much. I mean, look, one of the things we're seeing now with the pandemic, right, is we're seeing. I mean, I don't think I've seen it phrased exactly this way, but I've seen the evidence of it. We've got people have collectively got pandemic fatigue at this point. People are fucking bored.
Oh yeah, don't we know?
I mean, there are a lot of other things as well. They're hurt and they're sad and they're scared and all that stuff. I don't mean to belittle the psychological burden that we've all been through over the last sort of 2 years, but one massive component now is people are fucking bored of it. They are bored of masks. They're bored of staying home. They're bored of having to do all this shit they have to do. And yes, that phrase, we want things to go back to normal.
Back to normal. Yeah, that bothers me enormously.
How underestimate the psychological power of back to normal,
of normality. And I see it in so many areas of my life. I find it's particular. I mean, this may be just my particular biases, but I find it to be particularly true of people who are in the exact position we were discussing earlier, which is this slightly bourgeois sort of upper middle, where they are reliant upon a certain notion of normality. Yeah. Because it's everything they have, right? It's this materialist notion of normality where jobs go back to normal, where processes, shopping goes back to normal, returning things that they don't particularly like goes back to normal. For me, it hits. There were people, certainly at the beginning of the pandemic, who came to me talking about their kitchens, or their holidays that they couldn't have. And I'm like, I find myself incredulous at that.
Yeah.
I find myself incredulous. You are living through an epoch-making event, right? Do you not understand that, assuming that there is human history in like so many decades, they'll be looking back at this moment in the same way that people look back at things like World War II, right? This is a significant event we're living through.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just, I mean, I think the other thing that kind of bothers me as a creative as well, I've made the joke so many times it's not funny if it ever was, but the line about like God being a hack writer, you really could not pick it's hard to imagine a better microcosm of what the climate catastrophe is going to look like than COVID. Like COVID is, and there's, it's not actually entirely, I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist and I'm not floating it, but it's not entirely impossible that COVID actually is a symptom of global warming. It's not entirely impossible that, the increase in temperatures is leading to increased microorganism activity, which in turn is leading to increased mutation, which in turn is making it more likely that things like this will happen.
They are certainly tangentially related. I mean, the reason this respiratory virus was inevitable was because of air travel, right? Because of the way we travel now, yeah?
Well, yeah, that's right. So even if the warming thing's not true, even if you're right, even if it's more a symptom of the fact that it's a global pandemic is symptom of the technology we have, which is fine. Yeah, let's take that.
Well, I mean,
that's provable.
Did you look back at what like, I mean, I actually looked back at this when COVID hit. There have been medical think tanks since like the 1950s in almost every nation on Earth that has air travel saying this is inevitable.
Yeah.
There have been petitioning governments since the 1950s, maybe even earlier than that, saying, look, because of the way we travel now, because of the way we interact, a respiratory pandemic is absolutely inevitable.
Yeah, and because of how those viruses are transmitted and travel, and that's right. It was always going to happen eventually.
And what has almost every government on Earth done since that point?
Absolutely fuck all.
Absolutely nothing. Yeah. Nothing whatsoever.
And I just, but you look at in particular, you look at the right-wing responses and the responses of right-wing governments, and you're not going to get a better dress rehearsal for what they're going to do, when the climate apocalypse really starts to bite.
Oh right,
and I like, the thing that I find endlessly perpetually frustrating in a situation like this is having heard the warning shot, having seen the warning with our own eyes, like, the bit I don't understand, the bit I perpetually don't understand, is why people continue to pay attention to the voices that were demonstrably wrong. I just don't get it. In the US, I remember tweeting it. I remember it came up on my Facebook memories. On the anniversary of the insurrection, I'd actually posted something on Facebook saying, I really hope following this insurrection that the people who've witnessed it, I think I said assuming it fails, because I think at that point it might be still going on, but like assuming this insurrection fails, I really hope that those of you who are living in the US spend a good moment thinking about the people who warned you something like this was going to happen,
right?
And the people who laughed at that.
Yeah.
And I hope you spend some more time seeking out those voices that were correct, and disdaining those voices that were lying to you.
Yeah.
You know?
Because there were plenty who said that this was inevitable, that this was going to happen. There were plenty. So
there's a woman I follow on Twitter, and I don't know her real name. Her first name is Molly. I don't know her full name. I can't remember her Twitter handle, but she lives in Charlottesville, and she was in. I mean, I can't remember her connection with the events at Charlottesville. She was connected to those events. I can't remember what capacity she was there as an anti-fascist protester, I believe. But don't quote me on that. I might be wrong. But what certainly is the case with her is that she attended a lot of local municipal meetings following that, a lot of the local council meetings, and reported on what was being said and done following Charlottesville. And she was there. She live tweeted the recent civil trial where a bunch of far-right people got their asses handed to them in court by a civil jury, which was obviously a really important moment, really significant moment. She live tweeted that, and she was tweeting a couple of days ago. She said, she I think it was on the anniversary, and she said, "I'm just laughing at the moment remembering that the only time my Twitter account has ever been suspended was 6 months before the insurrection, when I was sharing information about Proud Boys amassing weapons and their intent to foment unrest."
Right.
So, I mean, again, you could not fucking make it up.
You can't make it up.
Someone's account, someone who's actually trying to be the canary in the coal line, someone who's ringing that fucking alarm bell saying, "Hey guys, their fucking account gets suspended."
Yeah,
are you kidding me? And the thing is, like, I want to come back to this because it really matters. We were talking earlier about the complicity of the media and social media, but I just want to make sure I've really fucking hit this nail dead on. Like, Twitter and Facebook are absolutely responsible to a frightening degree to the situation we currently face. Because what the Trump situation demonstrated was they absolutely have the power to combat misinformation, and so does the media. So does, because it wasn't just Twitter and Facebook. The tone in the newspaper coverage changed overnight. Suddenly they'd say, "Trump said this is factually untrue, actually this is the case." They could have been doing that from day one, and they didn't. And they're not doing it now. They're not doing it with Boris. They're not doing it with Bolsonaro. They're not doing it with, the senator from Kentucky. They're not doing it.
Nope.
They've gone straight back to fucking business as usual, right? And it's like, I don't understand why we collectively tolerate that.
My only ray of hope in that regard is that I am seeing them being called on it more and more and more and more, which is a good thing. But the problem with that, of course, is very often you only see them being called on it on social media platforms. It's like Twitter, it's Facebook, and those places. It doesn't matter how many hundreds of responses you see or how detailed those responses are. They're always going to be, to a degree, an echo chamber. They're always going to have a very small reach compared to the platforms themselves, especially when it's platforms like the fucking BBC that are so trusted, that have such a historical legacy behind them.
Yeah, that's right. And again, that's what we were talking about earlier, about the notion that our fantasy version of this always includes a third party, a new insurgent newspaper, a new insurgent. No. It'll grow inside the existing structures. The
BBC are a great microcosm of that exact process, are they not?
Absolutely.
The shift of the BBC to the right is undeniable and more profound than I ever. If I was in my early 20s, I would not have believed it.
I mean, the case you talked about earlier with that article. I mean, that was
it for me. That was it.
That was beyond parody. It was absolutely beyond parody. And the thing is,
you see? I mean, I don't think it was in response to that article. It was in response to something else that they did more recently that was absurd. It was when I think it was. They interviewed a lawyer who was involved with Ghislaine Maxwell, I believe. And they actually interviewed him, even though he was actually implicated in some of the charges, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
no, that's right.
The Sunday Sport commented on their Twitter feed because they actually issued an apology saying this was below our journalistic standards. And the Sunday Sport tweeted them and said, "Are you kidding? It's below our journalistic standards."
Yeah, no. It just there was another one they interviewed. Recent South American election. God, this is so embarrassing. I really should know. It was it Chile that just elected a left winger? I think it was. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? It was a Chilean election. The fucking BBC actually interviewed one of Pinochet's kids.
Fucking brilliant. I mean,
just a vox pop, right? Yeah. As a man on the street, what do you think this means for? Well, I'm worried about the lurch to the left in Chile now. Yeah. Like, what the fucking Jesus doing?
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. It is absolutely appalling. I mean, the state of the BBC at the moment in terms of its news coverage.
You're absolutely right. What bothers me is it's beyond parody, but look, there's no way of saying this without sounding condescending, and I really don't mean to. But like, for the whatever the fuck this means, the quote unquote average person who follows the BBC, like how are they going to know that shit's even going on?
Because for the longest time, of course, it has been the journalistic standard in this country, hasn't it? It has been the platform. You know,
when I was a kid, I because I was always a news hound. I remember that I would always I'd read the BBC for the facts, and I'd go to the Guardian for the opinion.
Yeah,
because I knew that the big issue with the BBC back then, in my view, certainly at that age, maybe I feel differently about it now, but was that it was just so fucking dry.
Yeah.
But that was what I felt you wanted from the BBC. You just give me the goddamn facts and actually keep them as dry as possible.
Yeah.
Let me work out the politics. Don't, that's fine. Just tell us what actually happened. Tell us what was said, by who, when, and, what happened, and that's fine. And it's always been the case that the BBC has slanted towards the establishment, and it's always been the case that the BBC has leaned to some degree or another towards the party of government as well. Whether that was the Tories or New Labour, it did slant. But that's what it was. It was a very slight. And by the way, that's because of the funding model.
Yeah.
You have to move towards the sunlight. The sunlight in this case being the money, because you kind of want to keep getting paid. You want to continue to exist, right? But something very, very strange and terrifying has happened over the last 10 years. BBC and journalism at the BBC. And
look at the degree it's platformed people like Nigel Farage, right? There was a time, and maybe this is rose-tinted glasses, I don't know, but there was a time they would never have dreamed of it.
I mean, I remember the one time they put on Nick Griffin, they put on the BNP guy.
They put him on Question Time, didn't they?
That's right. They did it exactly once. They did it because they just had it was there. I mean, it was, as it turns out, their electoral peak ever in the UK. They just had a big showing in the local elections. They won a handful of councillors.
And it was a disaster, right?
Yeah, he got absolutely. But that's the thing. It was an ambush, really, because they put on. I'm trying to remember who they had. I think Jack Straw, Bonnie Greer. It was interesting. They ended up going. I remember they went through 2 or 3 Labour people before they could get a Labour person, because the first 2 said, "I will not share a platform with the fascists." So that was just quite cool. They were kind of old school, but whoever it was, they got. But it was a massacre. It was an intellectual massacre, and the BNP sank without trace afterwards. Pretty much. I mean, they did get flattened, but then how did Nigel Farage ever become the acceptable face of, how did he become acceptable at all? Why is it was Farage's version of that okay and Nick Griffin's not?
Right. Why is that? And on a purely technical level, who the fuck is he? What qualifications does he have to talk about anything at all? Let alone talk about everything, which is what talking heads like him do, right? Because they assume the world is their playground. They assume that they are better than the experts, that they can say what they like, and then we reinforce them for it. I mean, it's amazing to me.
Well, it's like that. Yeah, I mean, it's that old Twitter joke, isn't it? God grant me the confidence of the mediocre white man. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
It's really extraordinary And I think as well, it's like you can't. I don't think you can underestimate how much it is down to kind of, well, it's the same appeal that Boris has, and that Nick Griffin didn't. I mean, the thing about Nick Griffin was, there's no kind way to say this. He's a horrible looking man.
He was, and charmless as well, utterly charmless. No eloquence whatsoever.
Charmless, ugly, and not very bright. Now, whereas there is again, it's that legend thing, that laddish thing. That I think there are a lot of people who don't know anything about politics who might just look at Nigel Farage and think, oh yeah, you could have a pie with him, he'd be alive.
I think that's largely, and that's amazing, isn't it? Because he is a toff.
Yeah. Oh, he's awful.
He's fucking gentry, He is, by definition, the enemy of everyone he purports to represent, by definition. And everything he does demonstrates that. The
other thing is, he's just such a transparent. I mean, we started.
He's just a fraud. He is a total utter shyster, right?
He's a grifter. I mean, that's where we end up back with Peterson, right? I mean, it's just. There was someone shared to me in a private chat. Apparently, Peterson's going to start promoting cryptocurrency, NFTs.
That might be the end of him.
And I just thought, of course, grift recognize grift. You know what I mean?
Recognizes grift, yeah. But that might be the end of him.
Nah.
That might drive him so far into obscurity.
If the all-meat diet that landed him in a fucking asylum doesn't get rid of him, nothing's getting rid of him. Right.
It's a fair point.
But beyond the point, you're not accountable unless you're working class. You're not ever going to be able to. If you're working class, you're never going to get anywhere anyway.
I always think there's a great quote in Barker's Sacrament that's always stuck with me because of the way it's framed. And there's a point in it where Will Rabjohns, the lead character, who is himself a British-born, talks about the species of opinionated bigot that the British breed so well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, yeah, that's this. That is this, right? That's where we are now, where we are predominated by ignorami, powerful ignorami, people like Piers Morgan, like Jeremy Clarkson, like Nigel Farage, like Boris Johnson, who know nothing about how things actually operate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, yes. I mean, I increasingly lean towards thinking that actually we've kind of always.
It's true. Yeah, it's absolutely true.
It's not a modern phenomenon.
It's not a new phenomenon. No, it is not a new phenomenon. Not by a long chalk. I mean, it's aristocracy ultimately, isn't it? It is the postmodern equivalent of like what would be the old landed gentry. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you talked earlier about divine right of kings, but it all comes from that same. There's an arrogance of the born to power in this particular country, the public school elite. I guess in America, it's the Ivy League. It's the Ivy League institutions, but it's the same. It's the same mentality.
Well, a friend of mine was talking about this. He lives in Lichfield, just up the road, and of course, the MP for Lichfield is Michael Fabricant. There is a very well-known Trotskyist pub in Lichfield, which is just full of the local socialists. Right. And my friend drinks there. And what happens? But Michael Fabricant walks in with his boyfriend.
Right.
And it's like, what did he expect to happen? Well, my friend gave him a mouthful and kicked him out, called him Tory scum and kicked him out. But the arrogance of that.
Yeah.
The arrogance of it, to think that you as a Tory MP can just gleefully wander into a working class leftist pub, right?
But I mean, the gates only swing one way. The gated communities only apply to them. They can live in their hallowed mansions behind a brick wall with the guard wire dogs, but they can go wherever they want.
They can go wherever they like and do whatever they. Yeah, absolutely. It's a game to them, isn't it? The whole world is their playground.
That's right. Yeah. The world belongs to them. And the thing is, it kind of does.
Yeah.
Until we decide otherwise.
Until we decide, no, fuck you. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's where we're at now. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know, man. The clock's ticking. The information's out there. Everybody fucking knows where we're at. Everyone knows what time it is. I mean, that's the one thing I will say about the education thing. Everybody does know. Everybody knows.
Yeah,
It's You know, that's the other thing, isn't it? That's the other interesting thing. I think about so much of the paranoid fiction that I read as a kid, and it was always grand fucking conspiracies that were going to destroy the world. It was always this fabric of lies and this great. And it's like, no, it turns out we're all going to sit knowing exactly what the score is.
It is not that at all. It's not the great veil.
No.
There's no veil. You don't need it.
No.
You don't need it.
No.
You know, the absolute truth is that facing the zombie apocalypse, you know, there's a great contingent of us that would walk with our eyes closed, like down the street, proclaiming there are no zombies. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing that COVID's taught me is that there's, you know, a non-trivial percentage of the population who will hide their fucking bites.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Know? Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's knowledge maybe. No, I mean, look, I've joked about before about the death of satire and stuff, and that's the other thing that I think's interesting about this film, is this for me feels like post-satire actually.
Right, yeah. It's satire that is, it's unusual, isn't it? Because satire tends to be like several steps removed from reality, right? A certain number of steps removed from reality. So it's just recognizable enough. This, actually, the membrane is so thin, it's permeable, right?
Yeah, but also I think equally what it proves is, to me anyway, that we actually live in such an age of absurdity that it is impossible to parody.
Right.
Because it is broad, this film. It is very broad in places. It's eye-rollingly broad in places. Guess what? It's still, if anything, slightly underplaying the reality. Yeah. That's the bit. There is nowhere to go. There's no... And actually, I mean, funny enough, Strangelove did a pretty good job of that too. You know, Strangelove was pretty good at kind of saying, like, this is the reality of mutually assured destruction. Let's stick a pin through it and put it under a microscope and watch it squirm. And yeah, guess what? It looks insane, and then you laugh, and the laugh kind of dies in your throat because it's like, no, we're living through this.
I think, I mean, one of the things that horrified me the most about watching the film was this gradual realization that part of me would prefer the situation in the film, where we've got like an immediate disaster that is actually not of our own making, even though we have the power to stop it. It's actually just a random chance, a cosmological chance, and we have a definite time frame. And when it hits, it's just the end. Yeah. There's no gradual to it. You know, it's not going to be slow. It's going to obliterate everything.
It's a really good point that's one of the few ways in which the metaphor of the movie does let us off the hook, in that we are blameless in the sense that the meteor is out of our control, in the sense that it's just coming. And that, what I would say about that, though, I think on the surface that's a fair reading, but I would point out, though, that for me, will that underline, I mean, actually, I think that's quite powerful, because what that does underline for me is the flip side of the despair of what we've been talking about powerlessness. It kind of isn't our fault, right? Climate change.
No, you're right.
We tell ourselves it is, but actually collectively it isn't. Most people don't want it. Most people would rather not do it.
And also in terms of generation as well. Yeah. I mean, the damage was largely done before we were born.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You know, so, this is a product of 100 years of industrialization.
Yeah, and again, we are expressing, when we say, oh, it's our fault and our responsibility, we're expressing the conditioning.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I remember, I mean, looking back now, I absolutely remember so much of our media as children pointing the finger and wagging the finger at us and telling us this, oh, pick up your litter, oh, oh, this and that, oh, well... telling like 1980s and 1990s children that you are going to solve climate change and it's your responsibility to solve climate change.
We're saying exactly the same shit with COVID now. It's about the good sense of the British people. I trust the good sense of the British people to go, well, what the fuck are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
We can't stay at home because we have to go to our jobs, or we'll lose our jobs because you're not providing furlough. So we have no choice but to go to work. To go to work, we either have to use cars or we have to use public transport, at which point we are exposing ourselves to hundreds of other people.
Which, of course, they know. I mean, it's another way of abrogating responsibility, of saying, you know what, we can't monetize this anymore. All the money's been used. We've given all the money to our rich mates already. So, go die, plebs.
But it feeds the great lie of personal responsibility, which is why so many people fall for it.
Yeah, right.
You know, because it's it's up to you now. You've got to take control. You've got to, you've got to take responsibility for your own situation.
It sounds good, doesn't it? It sounds right. It sounds like a correct thing to say and to believe. But it's amazing how often the things that sound correct and that it feel correct are not.
The phrase that always kills me is people should have the right to manage their own risk. That's the phrase that absolutely fucking kills me. Because it's like the intellectual dishonesty of it, but the surface plausibility too, like that in a vacuum, that's really appealing. Just taken as a phrase, outside of any material, historical or political context, that sounds great. People should have the right to manage their own risk. Who could argue with that? You'd have to be a fool to argue with that.
It sounds like the great lie of free will, right? It's related to that very concept, which of course free will sounds great, doesn't it? It sounds like an amazing thing. It's complete bullshit. On a philosophical level, it's complete bullshit. There's no such thing. There has never been any such thing. In the same way that there is no such thing as personal responsibility in the wake of a global pandemic.
The other thing it always makes me think of whenever I hear that phrasing, and I should really credit the man for it, because it did effectively inoculate me against that line of thinking forever. I remember seeing Glenn Beck. I think it was after. He was a man I had a little bit of interest with. Back when he was still on Fox News, you could still get Fox News through the Skybox, and I did watch. I'd watch it every now and then. I'd watch Beck in particular because there was something genuinely deranged about Beck that I found kind of compelling. And I think it was after he lost his Fox News gig, but he was still doing stuff online, and it was still free to view. And I'd tune in every now and then just to see what he was saying. And I'll never forget Glenn Beck saying, if we're not a free nation, we're not anything. We have to preserve freedom, and that has to be the most important fight that we have ever, and that must include the freedom to starve.
Wow.
Like the thing about Glenn Beck, for good and ill, was that he I mean, probably still is, but certainly was the kind. He would always say the quiet part out loud, and that's why they loved him, and that's ultimately why they dumped him as well. But that's really it, and that's when you strip away that line about people should have the power to manage their own risk, people should be allowed to manage their own risk. That's really what you're talking about. The right to starve. That's what you're talking about.
Go die, plebs. I mean, it's go and die in the gutter. That's essentially what it's saying. It's Mask of the Red Death. It is literally Mask of the Red Death. We're okay in our castles. If we get ill, we've got the best medical care in the world. Doesn't matter. The rest of you, go and die in the gutter.
I mean, to the point, by the way, where it turns out they actually were throwing the parties. Who knew?
Absolutely. I mean, like,
how embarrassing is that? You're throwing the Mask of the Red Death, but it's bring your own bottle.
Right, fuck, you are literally throwing, and the plague and everything. It is Edgar Allan Poe. It's Gothic literature, right? It's amazing.
But again, it's dress rehearsal, because it's the same argument of personal responsibility with COVID. They're already wheeling out. They've already deployed it for climate change.
Of course.
Like my metal straw as opposed to my plastic one's going to make any fucking
right. The only thing paper straws do is inconvenience people with learning difficulties. That is the only fucking thing.
Yeah. No, it's hard not to despair, really.
It is. I mean, I do fight that in myself when I find myself dipping into it. And I don't have any good. I have very few good arguments against it, other than a very personal, like, no, come on, fucking get out of it, get on with it. A very British way of dealing with trauma, which is not dealing with it at all.
I think the other thing I got out of the movie, and I'm getting out of the other art I've been engaged with recently, that I'm getting out of Eminem and actually Clive Barker, which is an interesting juxtaposition of artists given relative political positions, but there you go. Is being reminded, all three of those have in common is they're reminding me that I don't have to pretend it's okay.
Yeah, right.
I actually have permission, arguably, if I'm really feeling it, I kind of have the moral obligation to say it's not okay.
Yeah.
And to be
fine, right?
To be honest, both about the state of the world and about how the state of the world makes me feel. And actually, if that is causing discomfort to other people, that really is their fucking problem.
It's their problem, yeah. It is absolutely their problem, and they're going to have to deal with it, yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want to listen. There's a million podcasts out there.
Right, you do. You see it. I'm finding that you see it a lot on social media, and again, people are saying it a lot about this movie. And one of the reactions against it is that it's doom mongering.
Yeah, it's hopeless. How could you make a movie like this and not offer people hope?
Well, fucking turn off then. I mean, that's yeah. My social media, it's a tyranny of one. Sorry.
Yeah.
If I want to express anything on here, mute me, block me, unfriend me, unfollow. It's nothing to fucking. If I want to post gay pornography all over my Twitter, it's nothing to do with you, right?
Also, just going back to yes, co-signed. Also, though, going back to the movie and answering that question, actually thinking about it a bit more, why didn't the movie offer hope? I'll tell you why the movie didn't offer hope. Because if the movie had given you an honest depiction of what a hopeful movement actually looked like, it would never have been shown.
Absolutely. And also, that's not the point of the film, is it? It's not trying to comfort you. It doesn't want to show you hope. It wants to show you the worst case scenario.
No. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. The Easy Rider analogy. That's what the film. This is the end. This is what we're looking down the barrel of right fucking now.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not what, if you don't like how you feel right now, guess what? Get off your ass, because this is where this is where we're at.
That's the entire point of the film. I don't understand the criticism. I don't get that criticism. I find it to be insincere. I find it to be illegitimate, Well,
yeah, I think to take the most charitable possible reading of it, I think what that represents is the cognitive dissonance of, I was expecting a comedy about the end of the world to make me feel better, and it doesn't.
Right.
And it's the dissonance of, and again, it's that, to me, simplistic reading of the word comedy, and not understanding how something can be structurally comedy without necessarily being funny or making you feel
hopeful. Right. It's entirely possible. Yeah. There's plenty of comedies out there that deal with incredibly dark subject matter. And come to very dark conclusions as well. I mean, even something that ends on a song like The Life of Brian is ultimately a despairing film.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I think a lot of people, I think it's easy to kind of, I think there's a genuine brilliance to that particular artifact, in the sense that, and I mean, this is a classic, mileage may vary. For me, it is both poignant and funny. I think that they actually pull off that incredible trick of delivering a number there with the bright side of life at the end of that film that is both despairing and hilarious, and it genuinely is both, and you kind of laugh through your tears. Because
it is ultimate human futility that you're witnessing there. It's human futility and brutality born out of complete superstitious ignorance, and fanaticism, and it's brilliant. It's funny, it's poignant, it's clever, absolutely. But it's in its own peculiar way, it's no less despairing than what's in this film.
No, absolutely, and it's kind of,
it's just cleverly couched. That's all. It's just very cleverly couched. You've got this very ironic song.
Yes. And look, there were moments in this movie that made me laugh. There were moments. In this movie.
Me too. I found it really funny. I'll be honest, I laughed out loud, and I'm not, this is not it's not exaggeration to try and undermine the people who claim to not find it funny. I did find it funny. Yeah, I laughed out loud at several points in this film.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think as well,
mostly at Meryl Streep, I've got to say, I think she's hilarious. I think her performance is just,
what a performance!
It's so good in this film. It is so great.
Good. Actually, Jonah Hill got me as well. I think he's an incredibly skilled performer. I loved him in The Wolf of Wall Street as well. He's an incredibly, and his ability to play a slime bag, I think, is almost
it's unparalleled.
Yeah,
right? It is. Yeah, he's got a real role there, hasn't he?
And he knows exactly what he's doing. It's such because it's not just. The lines are great, but his tone of voice, his mannerisms, he's expressions are.
He exudes mucus, right?
Oh, he's awful. He's awful in the best possible way, and it's a very controlled performance. It's really, really skillful. Ron Perlman was majestic. Love that man there.
Yeah,
and he was
so
majestic in this as the kind of ultimate parody. Yeah, I mean, he was kind of I didn't really put it together afterwards, but he was almost like Rambo, right? It was almost like that kind of Vietnam vet era kind of unreconstructed, bullet-headed, Saxon mother's son, that kind of vibe. Just wonderful. And again, I mean, one of the things that I loved about the movie is how everybody just went for it. I mean, just absolutely committed. Again, I come back to Ariana Grande, just wonderful. That would have fallen flat if she hadn't really, really, really gone for it. And
and if she hadn't understood as well, I mean, I feel as though if it were at her expense and she hadn't understood that, it wouldn't have hit as hard, right?
No, it was brilliant. She knew exactly what she was doing. She knew exactly what the piece was doing, and I'm so impressed with that. And Mark Rylance, who played the character's called Peter Ishwell, the tech billionaire.
I think he may be my favorite in the whole film. He's everything I hate. But
I was talking earlier about that there are a couple of criticisms you could level. One of them is briefly the American-centric nature of the story. There just isn't enough of the global picture, and you could have done that while preserving the satire. It wouldn't have taken much, but you could just had the UN throw in a couple of resolutions and some flimflammery, and just make it clear that, like with everything else, they make a noise and they do fuck all. I mean, it wouldn't have undermined the story in any way. But you could have done that, and I find it regretful that they didn't, because this is a global situation. That's the thing, you see, and again, that speaks to the inherent American centricism of the piece, which is a little bit unfortunate, because actually it is a global problem. It will require a global solution, but we don't have anything like a global structure of politics and power that can make something like that possible. Even though the vast majority of people on the planet desperately want to see something happen. Again, to powerlessness, the enormous gap between public opinion and government policy in so-called democratic societies I don't think it's ever been wider. I mean, in the US, they did a study recently in the US, it bears almost no relation between what public opinion is on a given subject and what the government does.
And what the government actually does,
for like a decade. And guess what? Biden hasn't fixed that, and he won't.
Well, he won't, because he is like personification of establishment,
I'd lay money it's the same in this country, and there's the reasons why are complicated and many and interconnected. It's not a simple question, but it's a very stark picture. And I will say this: I don't think it's any coincidence at all that we live in societies that have that big a gap between public opinion and public policy. At the same time, we live in countries and in a world that has such a gigantic gap between the richest 0.1% and the rest of the population. I don't think that's any coincidence at all, and I think you're an idiot if you think otherwise.
I think absolutely. I
know correlation isn't always causation, but in this particular case,
but in this instance, I don't see how you can't see the relation. Right? Exactly.
I think it's crystal clear, because where is the power really? That's what it comes down to. The movie, that's something that this is an incendiary thing for Hollywood to do. I can't quite get to subversive, but it's certainly incendiary. Like, the politicians don't have any real power. They're not the real power. The real power is this completely unaccountable, unelected, lunatic billionaire.
Well, we see that, don't we? We see that in probably what is one of the most quietly horrific moments in the film. When they're watching the first rockets go up, and he comes into the room and Meryl Streep goes out. Don't you? The film is framed in such a manner.
And my stomach sank. It just even before the rockets turned around, I was like, oh my. Then when they do, it's just like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh my god! And
this
again,
is the power that this guy has, right?
And again, like, it's on the nose, but it's kind of not. That kind of is exactly like. What do you think? What do you think lobbying firms are? How do you think our structure of government actually works? Why do you think private companies spend, billions of dollars and billions of pounds investing in people whose job is to influence government policy
in a more
effect? Are you like one of those people that thinks advertising doesn't fucking work?
Right.
How do you think this works?
Right. In a more grotesque manner, how do you think people like Epstein and Prince Andrew keep getting away with what they do?
I mean, come on, And it's like, So that's a really powerful moment. But like, what I loved about, I mean, actually, sorry, that did remind me. There was one other minor area of criticism I had. I did want to put my finger on it just so that I know I've said it, which is like, I could have done without the connections between Peter Isherwell and kind of neurodiversity. There was a gag when he gets introduced where there was this line about please do not make direct eye contact, or it's like, oh, that's okay.
Come on, yeah. I mean, yeah.
I could have done without that personally, because it's not. There's a really complicated thing there around neurodiversity. Like there's a long overdue, much needed, and in my opinion, morally very strong and correct and powerful movement currently within the neurodiversity community to reclaim it, right, and to say like,
absolutely,
it's not an illness, it's not a disability. This is just my brain works differently to yours, and that's okay. And not only is it okay, it's kind of fucking awesome. And deal with it. And I'm not speaking against that, all power to that, but I don't like the way this movie, it felt to me like it was just a little bit too explicitly linking neurodiversity with a particular kind of genius.
Yeah, right. It's that. I mean, it's something that Lex Jones and I have talked about quite extensively on this channel. There is a thing in media at the moment, in popular media, where because neurodiversity in popular media is actually quite a new thing in terms of the way it's portrayed, right? There was a time when popular fiction would just ignore neurodiversity completely, or it would demonize people, neurodiverse people. What it does tend to do these days is it overcorrects. So you have like the House style characters. You have characters like Will Graham, I suppose, in Hannibal, where they are. They're not just normal people, just people who happen to think differently or who are wired differently. They are super geniuses. In some aberrant way.
I mean, it's interesting. House I could almost give a half a pass to, in the sense that House is very clearly modelled on Sherlock Holmes. So Sherlock Holmes is clearly someone who's neurodiverse. Right, actually, when you go back to the source material, and that's quite nice, because that's one of those examples we talked about many times before. The art being wiser than the man. Yeah. They may not have had the terminology to describe someone who was neurodiverse in the Victorian era, but if you were a good enough writer, you could put one on the page.
Absolutely, and you would have seen it. You would have seen that factor at work in your life, right?
And Holmes is so clearly on the spectrum.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are certain characteristics that he has that are, absolutely.
All of them. I mean, that's the thing. All of the things that make him unique, taken together. There is a checklist of indicators.
Yeah, absolutely.
They just are, and it's just like that's just. Come on, and that's actually, as I said, that's testament to good writing in my view. That's where you can do that. So I'll give House like half a pass because he's modelled on that. Maybe but yeah, it's endemic. And I think for me the problem is the kind of what we've got is this situation where you get this kind of jokey thing about, it's a strain of joke about Zuckerberg. Like he looks like he looks like an alien who's trying to learn how to smile and all this kind of shit. It's like, and it's that thing of like, can we just. It's like criticizing Donald Trump for being overweight. Do you know?
Right, and it could be also read in a slightly more negative way. Of course, it could be a veiled attack upon like Silicon Valley and on the tech industry, which is, classically pervaded by neurodiverse people. Right. Right.
But I found that like I just could have done without it. It was just one of those
unnecessary, and it was.
Look, it was one of the very few moments where, for me, the broad strokes were too broad. Most of it landed really well. Most of it actually was kind of terrifying, right? That's what we spent most of the time talking about. So I guess I wanted to put my finger on the one moment where I was like, you know what, you kind of fluffed that. But that said, the way Rylance plays the character and the way the character is written outside of that one gag is absolutely brilliant.
It is absolute genius, that performance. It's incredible. The slight feathery voice, the way he's not like in the world. Brilliance.
Very, very, very in his world. And my God, does he know his world inside and out? And it is a bit scary because, again, the thing is, like, he's absolutely not a stupid man.
No, wow, he's a genius, isn't he? He is like a sincere genius, right? And a visionary. He is a visionary, right? It's just that he's also very narrow. He's very myopic.
Yeah, and kind of insane.
Insane, right? Yeah.
It's like the moment that really brought it home to me. And it's a great scene, is where Leo. It's after the rockets are turned around, and then Leo's in the hangar, and the president's there as well.
Oh yeah.
Leo just really hesitantly tries to bring up this subject of peer review as links to the research that this guy's company's done about the drones and this supposedly better solution for and it's just, because I just noticed that, like, our approach was peer reviewed and yours doesn't seem to. And the way the guy just flips on him suddenly, because it's like, oh, now you've got my attention, you want my attention. That's the scary thing.
Right.
Clouds, because if I'm thinking about you, I'm probably thinking bad thoughts. And it was just fucking brilliant. But the other thing about the scene that was great, so there was that, and that was awesome, the performance was great, but the other thing about that scene was, it was the moment that Leo realized the Emperor has no clothes, and that no one was going to admit it. Nobody was going to. Everyone, that we were literally going to march ourselves off a cliff. We were literally going to march ourselves into the face of a giant rock, rather than admit that this fucking guy is crazy.
It's the dawning horror, isn't it? That's
just magical. It's just so good. The whole structure around it, the political structure, the economic structure, the power structure, none of it was capable of admitting this guy had no clothes. Because if it did, if it did, they'd be embarrassed. And they'd rather the fucking world ended than they admit their own weakness, their own failings, their own embarrassment. That's a small number of people making that decision for all of us.
For all of you. Well, it's not even just all of humanity, is it? It is literally every life on the earth. It's the earth itself, right?
And like, that's not even a metaphor.
That's just true. That's just bang on the nose. Absolutely true.
22.
That's where we are.
That's where we are. That's where we are. Yeah, I mean, what you're supposed to say? I mean, it's just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And I mean, he was great right to the end. In the postscript, he was hilarious. I mean, that moment when because you get that gag of like because he knows the gag of like he knows how everyone's going to die.
Because the algorithms he's created, right? The president asks him, so how? And she's kind of humming and hawing about it, isn't she? So,
I want to know. I know it's not right, but is it? But it's kind of Oh god, that was so funny.
You get eaten by a what was it? A Blaylock or something.
Yeah. We
don't know what it means. The things he does with his voice as well. I love what he's doing with the way he speaks. I don't know what it is, but there's an intonation, the feathery, almost like prophet-like nature to the way he speaks. Which I just love. It's like he is like an angel descended from on high, right? With sublime wisdom.
Yes, but also that's part of the mythology of who he is. Because actually, he's not. Actually, in that
of course he's a lunatic.
Yeah, he's a person who's very bright at one thing. Who thinks that makes him super bright at everything.
Yeah, right.
They are. That is the class that's going to destroy us all if we keep listening to them.
Yeah,
fundamentally. Absolutely. So he's a perfect representation of that. But I also love what I love is how amiable he is. In every other scene. It's only in that moment when he's remotely questioned and challenged. And why? And then and what I love about that is it makes sense of his, because of course he's amiable. Everyone agrees with him about everything all the fucking time.
Right. He has everything any human could ever desire, right?
If this person you meet and everything he touches turns to gold, then you're going to be nice to him.
Yeah.
Touch something and give it to you, and then you've got some gold, and that's and that's it. And that's the entire. And then the one time, like, the way he reacts is incredible.
Yeah.
And it's the most. I mean, Leo he does a good job in that scene. Like, he's really kind of apologetic.
Yeah, right. Even though technically he should be punching this guy to the ground, right?
But that's great too, because what's happening there is that's Leo's characters.
That's who he is, right? That's what he's like all the way through. He is so fundamentally powerless, isn't he?
Also, again, we were talking about middle class values. That's politeness.
Yeah, right.
It's a very, very English disease, but it's especially a middle class disease
Yeah.
in England and the US, and it. That politeness and him wrestling. I mean, there's a guy who knows the end of the world is coming and is suddenly having grave doubts about the solution that has been presented to him. And he's starting to realize that the science doesn't add up. And he's a scientist, so he really, really knows it doesn't add up. And that's the weight of knowledge he's carrying. And he still almost can't get the words out.
Yeah.
Say to this guy, excuse me, but I'm not quite sure these numbers add up. Could you just possibly? I mean, fucking hell, man.
Yeah.
It's great.
And it's a characteristic that's all the way through, isn't it? He cannot, even when the circumstances are so grave, he cannot express the gravity of it.
No, and the other thing is, but that's what's interesting about that is that the movie's really describing the catch-22 that the media puts you in, which
of
again,
course, right?
It's like if you express things the way they are, you look like a lunatic.
You look like a lunatic, right?
But
because that's where we are. That's the horror of our circumstances, right? You can't go on a popular news channel or outlet and talk about the impending end of everything, right?
At the same time, if you do the media training thing and you deliver what they want you to deliver, your message won't get across because you're no longer telling the exact truth of what's happening.
Right,
because
you've always compromised.
You've toned it down so much for consumption. You're actually talking in riddles, effectively. You're just talking. So you're talking exactly the same language as the anchors. It's contentless.
Yeah,
it's absolutely contentless, and it's. I mean, that's again the incendiariness of that. To just casually throw that into this kind of, this big comedy movie and just be like, oh yeah, by the way, this is I mean, no wonder the media critics don't like it.
Yeah, it's attacking them, isn't it? It's in the same way that we've seen this dynamic repeated on a smaller scale with things like Brass Eye, right?
Yeah.
Remember what happened to Brass Eye?
Yeah, God almighty.
And when it dared to attack the media establishment.
I mean, I think we've agreed, haven't we, that we'll do a what the hell is wrong with us on Brass Eye.
Oh yes. Oh my God, it's got to be done. It's got to be done.
It was a foundational text for me, and I think as well one of the few comedies I grew up with that really stood the test of time. Actually, I think Brass Eye is weirdly timeless, even though but I think the reason it's timeless is because it's so exquisitely of its moment. I think the thing with watching Brass Eye now, although I haven't done it in about a decade, but certainly the last time I watched Brass Eye, it was like, wait, when was this made? Because it anticipated so keenly.
Mid-1990s, early 1990s.
Way earlier than anything. I think it was I think it was the first half. I think it was 93.
Yeah, because Jam came later, didn't it?
Yeah, and the Day-to-Day came first, remember? And
right, that's right.
That was actually better than people remember. I mean, that was very subversive. But Brass Eye was like Day-to-Day turned up to 11. And it was, it also, Day-to-Day was an ensemble thing. And you had that was actually Alan Partridge where he started.
Yeah, of course.
As the hapless sports commentator who didn't know anything about sport, which was absolutely wonderful. But then Brass Eye was really Chris Morris's baby.
Yeah.
And that's when he just kind of was really...
It's when he got vicious.
I don't think he'll ever be given that kind of freedom on TV again.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
Holy crap. Quite extraordinary. And I think especially the paedophilia special, because it was...
Oh, it's amazing.
Again, it's just, I mean, saying those words out loud makes me cringe, right? There's an inherent incendiary nature just in deciding you're going to do a satirical news program about that. I mean, but the way he completely lampooned the media's prurience around that.
It was amazing. I mean, what the cleverness of that episode is that he never once underplays like the gravity or seriousness of child abuse. He never does. What he does is attacks the media hysteria.
He shames the way it's reported, the way it's handled, and the way it's actually sensationalized and titillated. I mean, that's what he does. He points the finger back at the media and says, "I'm sorry, but you're sick in the way you do this actually horrific thing." And blimey, was he right?
Yeah, and he was absolutely correct. And of course, they pilloried him for it.
Oh yeah, but
Oh, and also, of course, those know nothing celebrities, he'll join any cause if they think it'll like raise their media profile.
I mean, that was brutal, because for that one he got the one I'll never forget is Phil Collins.
Yeah.
And DJ Foxy, that was the other one.
Who turned out himself, I believe, to be a paedophile.
Interesting. I didn't know that, but yeah. I know that. Yeah, but that was the guy who he got DJ Foxy to look down the camera and say pedophiles have more
common genetically with a crab
than with a human.
In all seriousness, not as satire, but in all seriousness, that's what he got him to say.
The second line he got him to say immediately after that, he said, "That's scientific fact. There's no actual evidence to support it, but it is scientific fact."
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Who was it? When he did the drugs episode, he got someone to say, it may have been Paul Daniels actually, he got him to say, the drug cake attacks the part of the brain known as Shatner's bassoon.
Yeah, I can't remember. He got a few people on that one. He got Noel Edmonds.
Yeah.
He got Bernard Manning, which was just like, okay then. Was it Bruno Brooks? Might have been Shatner's bassoon actually. I can't remember. He got a lot of people for the drugs. He got Stephen Dorrell to raise it in the House of Commons.
Oh, just amazing. Amazing.
And Bernard Ingham, which was a personal victory for me because Ingham is one of the. I mean, I'm not a fan of Tory politicians, as I'm sure you'll know, but Ingham holds a special place in my heart of hate. I mean, I find him even amongst the Tories, I find him an almost uniquely detestable human being.
Which is some going, isn't it?
Well, his propaganda war on Hillsborough will forever live on. It should shame his family to the seventh.
Absolutely, it should make them want to change their name. Quite frankly.
Yeah, it should. But yeah.
But yes. Wow.
I don't know. I did actually watch the ITV series Anne about Hillsborough and about the mother of one of the victims.
I think I would find that very, 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 very difficult indeed.
Maxine Peake, yeah, it was heavy going, but it was pretty amazing. But again, I mean, I don't, not to jump on one of my own hobby horses there, but it does. I think the reason that one resonated with me so strongly, and where it does speak to the current moment and to this film, is about the degree to which the establishment can create a narrative and perpetuate it, for decades.
Oh, for decades, yeah. Demonize entire swathes of people. Yeah. Working class, obviously. They've got to be working class.
Yeah,
they absolutely have to be working class for it to work.
I mean, if they're from some other minority group, they can be lower middle class and you'll still get away with it.
Yes, you'll still get away with it. Yes, definitely.
Thing. But no, absolutely. But it's again, it's one of those things where all of the facts are in the public domain for decades and still the establishment rallies around and denies. And when I say the establishment, I mean, that's one of the things this show was really good at, because it's not primarily about the day, it's primarily about because it's the mother of one of the victims. So it's following in her 30-year quest for justice,
for truth.
Yeah, and it's not just Tory governments, New Labour.
New Labour, the police, obviously.
And the press, and the relationship between the police and the press. I mean, how many times in this country have we got to learn that the Met have a corrupt relationship with the tabloid press in this country? And that how are we not up in our? I mean, how is the Sun still being published? How is the Mail still being published?
I know. How do people still keep buying it? That the working class people, when I see a working class person buying those papers, I just want to shriek Hillsborough at them.
And how have the entire kind of ruling infrastructure of the Met just not been fired summarily and replaced?
Yeah, just completely dismantled. Yeah, just dismantled. Take
the power structure apart and start again. I mean, it's just bonkers to me.
It needs doing, because it's completely inept and corrupt. There's
right now, as of today, it is playing out. They're refusing to investigate clear breaches of legislation. Why? Because it happened at Downing Street. And you know why they're not investigating? It's not actually out of any desire to protect Boris. It's because there would have been policemen on the door.
There will have been, absolutely. There may have even been people there who were involved in some of this that were from high up in the Met. You just don't know,
For sure, there was someone high up in the Sun editorial board who was that's now been established. Someone from the Sun paper, the only paper that didn't run a headline on the story when it broke.
Right, of course.
I mean, well, why are we hearing about it a year later?
Yeah.
Why are we hearing about it a year later? Everybody knew. everybody in the press knew. Why have we had to wait a year to hear this?
This is in the wake, by the way, with regards to the Met. This is in the wake of the Sarah Everard situation.
Oh, just at the same time that they're weighing in and arresting women at that protest. At the same time that's happening.
Yeah,
they're counting 100 people through the door with bottles of wine.
Oh yeah. By the way, after one of their own raped and murdered someone.
Oh. I mean, I just. These are not aberrations. These are not. That's the other thing that I just think I wish people understood. Maybe that's where it goes wrong. The narrative is that they're aberrations, and that this is not. No, this is.
No, this is the way it is. This is the way it is. I mean, like
exactly as intended, as designed.
Right.
I
mean, it's not historically. It's not that long ago that like the miners in the 80s were just being, assaulted by the police. So,
and we never got. I mean, as imperfect as it was, and as disappointing as the final couple of court cases were, we did end up with the verdict of unlawful killing, at least for Hillsborough. I mean, in that sense, a certain measure of justice was long delayed but done. There's never been justice for Orgreaves or anything like it, and newsflash, I can't imagine at this point there will be.
Well, most people have forgotten by this point, haven't they? So
it's a lot of the same. I'm just gonna just the patterns of corruption are there. And the same pattern of corruption that was manifest at Hillsborough was manifest at Orgreaves.
Yeah.
But it's less political. Hillsborough, enough times passed and enough has been learned that a Tory government can safely allow an investigation of Hillsborough to happen because it's not going to reflect on anyone that's still got any power. But the thing about Orgreaves is if they investigate that, they have to admit that maybe the unions had a point about something, and they can't do that. Can't do that because it's too useful a boogeyman to have this ghost of a militant unionism that needs to beat current workers whenever they get brave enough to try and stand up for their rights and powers. It's oh, fucking hell.
But yes, I mean, next time I believe we're doing a Magica, right?
I think that's. I'm 80% through now, and I'm reading it most nights. So I'd forgotten how amazingly the time and the book telescopes in the last.
Oh, it's huge, right?
But I love how it comes screaming in. Suddenly you're like, oh, so we basically got 24 hours now, and I've still got a third of the book to go.
Right? Yeah.
Brilliant. And I love Barker, and it is what we were talking about earlier, going out your comfort zone and coming back. I mean, watching that Hillsborough thing was out of my comfort zone. This movie was right out of my fucking comfort zone.
Yeah, right.
To get Barker is just such a warm hug after that.
Which is a bizarre thing to say because, like, I mean, Barker goes to places that, like, nobody else does. Like, no creator I've ever come across goes to the places Barker does.
You know what I'm realizing this read through, like that he has such a love of humanity.
Yeah,
Barker really, really does, and he despises the power structures and he despises reality. But when he zooms in on the people, there's so much love there.
Yeah, there is. There absolutely is. You see it with the gay guys in this one.
So, the immediate gang surrounding Gentle and Judith
is great, isn't it?
They are beautiful. They are beautiful characters.
Possibly Barker's greatest creation as well, Pyopa.
Yeah.
Possibly the most incredible thing.
I mean, I think you could say ahead of its time, but at the same, again, I feel like it's not just ahead of its time. It's still territory that really
is almost like unheard of, right?
I shouldn't say that. I haven't read enough. I haven't read enough fantasy and science fiction to know. I'm sure it has. I'm sure ideas like it have been picked
there
up.
Are more ideas now like it. I mean, I read a great science fiction short story collection called Brave Boy World recently, which is a collection of science fiction dystopian stories about trans men.
Okay.
Really brilliant, and by trans authors as well. Really brilliant.
Okay. That sounds good.
Yeah, that has a lot of You can actually feel the influence of Barker in a lot of those stories. And notions like Pyopa come up quite a lot.
Yeah. But I also just love how ludicrously readable Barker is.
It's enviable, isn't it, right?
Oh, to put it mildly, especially given the concepts and the metaphysics.
I don't know how he does it.
I don't have a clue.
I don't know how he does it.
There's a fluidity in the storytelling, but we'll get to that, because there's a couple of examples I want to pull out, which I really think illustrate what I mean about the fluidity of the storytelling. That's just, again, it is, you're right, it's a totally different experience reading this thing as a writer.
I want to pin him down. I want to get him in the room somewhere and say, like, okay, what's going on?
You're not leaving this hotel room, Mr. Barker, until you explain to me how the fuck. How the fuck? That's it.
What Mephistophelian
You actually are gentle, aren't you? That's the truth. This is a fucking autobiography. That's the only way this makes goddamn sense.
Right. There's something going on here. I mean, it's Weaveworld will always be my favorite, but there is no doubt in my mind that Imagica is like the greater book. You know, it is it is just the most consummate thing he's ever written.
Well, it's the New Testament, right? I mean,
right. That's it. Like, if Weaveworld is like a fable, this is a testament. Yeah. It's a gospel.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think it is. I think it absolutely is. I fucking love it.
Because we're in danger of actually like.
Let's not do
it, right? Let's. I think
Magica, Brass Eye for sure. I'd love to get it right. I think this would be a good year for Brass Eye. I feel like it's not.
I feel it might be.
It's not going to be. I think it's not going to be any less relevant than it would have been. I think it's a good time to do it. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what else. We'll kick some ideas about.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty. We could kick down the alleyway there. Before we go, is there anything that you'd like to pimp out?
Yeah, I'll just mention a couple of things. So I'll talk about, as we've been talking about apocalyptic fiction that makes you feel miserable, I will talk about the Finite.
I noticed there's a new printing of that, isn't there?
That's why I wanted to mention. It's the Black Shuck books who published the Finite. Have just put out a new edition with an absolutely beautiful new cover.
Very beautiful.
Yeah, and it's part of their signature novella series, which I'm very proud to be part of, alongside some absolutely incredible authors. So it's a real honour to be included in that series. So if you wanted to pick up the Finite, you haven't yet. There is a brand new edition out there. So go to blackshuckbooks.co.uk, I think.
I'll put links below, by the way, ladies and gents, to not only Kit's book, but that whole reprint.
Yeah, because they're doing, right now, he's doing a bundle edition on the print, so you can buy the first 8 for like 50 quid, which is
They are gorgeous. I mean, I've read most of those books, to be honest, and it's a bargain. It really is.
Really, really good. Yeah, they're superb. They're superb stories. So that's there, and as well as an individual format. So please do go and pick that up. And if you have picked it up and read it and enjoyed it, leave a review. In fact, you know what? If you've read it and hated it, leave a review anyway.
Absolutely, go for it.
Just bung up a review, that'd be great. All of my fiction you can find on Amazon. Just search under books for Kit Power. If you want to buy the ebooks, buy them from Amazon. If you want to buy the paperbacks, they've got ISBNs. Take them to your local bookshop or library. That would be fantastic. And just pick them up there. That'd be great. Thank you very much. I kick around this channel quite a lot, as you know.
Indeed.
And so if you want to hear more of Josh and I doing this thing, we have past episodes there, and Ginger Nuts of Horror for my non-fiction. And if you want to pledge $1 a month for something new from me every week, something new could be podcast, could be non-fiction essay, could be new fiction, patreon.com/Kit Power. $1 a month gets you something new every week.
Brilliant. Once again, ladies and gents, down below, links to absolutely everything. For myself, the same as usual. You can find links to all of my published fiction over at strangeplaygrounds.com. Recently had Born in Blood Volume 2 published from Perpetual Motion Machine Publications.com, which you can find either direct from that site or on Amazon.
Coming by flipping heck.
All right, that was my
God.
That was my friend Nick Hardy who did that. Isn't it beautiful?
absolutely just jaw-dropping.
It's I love the way the two volumes, like the first one is the kid and the second one is the adult. If you put them together, they form a big picture. There is actually like a composition that they form when you put them together. Just in case you wanted to get, there is just in case, ladies and gents, there is a bundle pack you can get over at perpetualmotionmachinepublications.com. I just thought I'd mention that. Just thought I'd put that out there. You can find me knocking about here on Exaggerated Elegy. I've just got my PS5, so there's going to be some new stuff going up very soon.
Oh, yikes. Look out, spare time.
There's going to be some more stuff going up about that. If you fancy a chat, just come over to Twitter, Enigmatic Elegy, and give me a bell. Also, look out very, very soon. My short story, The Last Disgrace, is going to be featuring in a collection I'm very, very pleased, an anthology I'm very pleased to be part of, which is Queer Saints. Obviously, there will be videos about that nearer the time of publication, but I am so pleased to be a part of that.
That looks incredible, and you included. That's a hell of a lineup too. I remember
there's a couple of submissions floating around out there, and I try not to get too emotionally attached to submissions because there's loads of reasons why you may not be loads of reasons. I wanted to be part of this.
Yeah.
And when I found out I'd got down to the last 100, I was like, oh fuck. And then when I found out I was down to the last 15, I was like, oh fuck. And then I found out, I was in it. I was like, yay! I was very, 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 very pleased. But there'll be more about that closer to the date of publication. Apart from that, ladies and gents, thank you so much for listening to us. To go 3 hours, kid, we've done rather well there, I think.
I think for us, actually, given the subject matter, that's pretty restrained.
Not too bad, actually. That's okay compared, isn't it?
I was worried we were going to get to day 2, to be honest.
Yeah, considering that the Joker went on for 2 repeats, basically.
Oh God!
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to us. And Kit, thank you once again.
Anytime. Great pleasure. Great pleasure.
Brilliant.
All right.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye for now.